Chapter 16 Disappearing Corpse, New Crisis. Some people have long been dissatisfied with him, but no one can kill him. Lao Zheng's betrayal made the two men around him look strange. They didn't expect that Lao Zheng was so courageous and betrayed his eldest brother so thoroughly without worrying at all about his eldest brother's subsequent reckoning and revenge. Real? Sui frowned and looked at Lao Zheng. He was not quite sure that someone could have such a terrifying talent. Resurrection from the dead? This is probably an SSS-level talent. In the Doomsday, you are almost invincible. You don't have to be afraid no matter what kind of threat you face. Real? Old Zheng gritted his teeth and nodded, his face full of gloom. I don't want to live anyway, and I don't want to suffer this humiliation anymore. It would be best if you can kill him. If you can't kill him, just give me a quick death. It doesn't look like a lie. Sui remained silent, and after a moment he gave an order. Take Lao Zheng to identify the body. Find the body of Mr. Li, and if you can't find the body, find someone else. Yes. The assaulter nodded and escorted Lao Zheng out. The remaining medics exchanged positions with the rifleman guarding the remaining prisoners and ensuring Suyi's safety. Sui kept the two captives and planned to ask them some questions. Tell me about the good things you and Mr. Li did. Sui glanced at the two captives and said calmly, tell me everything you know. Don't try to lie to me. Old Zheng doesn't want to live anymore. I will ask him to verify everything you say. If I find out that you guys have lied to me, you will go with Lao Zheng. Suyi's words clearly gave the two people hope to survive. The two captives looked at each other, and one of them gritted his teeth and said, Boss, what do you want to know? All things. What have you done since the end of the world? Sui glanced at the two captives and asked emphatically, especially the one with the surname Li. What's so strange about him? Boss, if we tell you, don't kill us. The other person was a little timid. He swallowed nervously and murmured, that day, after we were sent back, the sky turned red. We lived together on the third floor. There was no food at home, and we were starving. Just at this time, the man surnamed Li came to us and said he could take us out to get food and water. We followed him, going out to look for supplies every night, and sleeping and playing with women upstairs during the day. After that, the man surnamed Li found a lot of people and robbed most of the people on this floor. The more the man spoke, the lower his head dropped, as if he knew that he had done things worse than animals. That Li guy was just threatening everyone at first, but then that day, he used a knife to kill someone. Then, he said he would kill anyone who disobeyed him, and the old people were the first to suffer. He asked the men to go out hunting with him in batches, and then come back to sleep with the women. Many people thought that since it was the end of the world, they might as well listen to him. The man was talking on, and Sui frowned and interrupted. What's the matter with Li's immortal body? I have no idea. A hint of fear appeared on the man's face. He murmured and shook his head. I did see it. Someone chopped off his head. There was a girl on the roof. Her boyfriend was there when the apocalypse broke out. He was said to be a very powerful fighter who learned Sanda. That guy chopped off Lao Li's head, and then Lao Li's head grew back soon and killed the man. That guy's woman was later tortured to death by Lao Li, and after that no one dared to resist Lao Li. Sui raised his eyebrows and said coldly, you don't dare, and you don't want to, right? The man shuddered and remained silent. Old Li is also a character. He uses a combination of kindness and severity. While killing the chicken to scare the monkeys, he also shares benefits with these men. People were already in panic about the end of the world, and after what Lao Li did, most men were willing to follow him. If nothing unexpected happens, Lao Li's shelter will probably grow and develop easily. Since Lao Li's talent is immortality, what is your talent?
Sui asked indifferently.
The man was stunned and a little confused. Talent? What is talent? Sui raised his eyebrows and looked the man up and down in silence. This guy didn't look like he was lying. Or is it that his talent needs to be hidden? Sui couldn't see through it, but the man was frightened by his gaze and couldn't help but quickly explain. Boss, you don't think we are as unkillable as Lao Li, right? We are just human beings, mortals. We can be killed with one knife. Don't joke with us. Don't try it. We just want to survive, and many things are forced upon us. Even if they want to kill us, it's the police who should arrest us, try us, and sentence us. The man explained in a panic, and Sui suddenly interrupted. You haven't returned to your own house? Have you been following Brotherly all the time? Huh? Yes, big man. The man was stunned, nodded in confusion and said, Old Li won't let us separate. He's afraid that others will betray him. He wants everyone to be under his watch. Even sleeping requires sleeping where he can see us.
No wonder.
Sui murmured. The man's surname Lee probably knew about the existence of talent, and he was also afraid of the emergence of a tough opponent, so he ordered everyone not to return to their own shelter. At the beginning of the apocalypse, many people were taken by Lee before they had time to unlock their talents. This group of people without talent are just ordinary people. Sui silently called the data panel of the shelter in his heart and found that there was indeed no response. In this case, it is conservatively estimated that only the one with the surname Lee has talent. The 3 people who are still alive should not have activated their talents. Sui thought in his heart that the only thing that gave him a headache now was Lee's immortal body. Just then, the worst news came. The assaulter and Lao Zheng brought back the news that they had searched the entire building carefully but did not find Lee's body. This made Sui frown. Not finding the body meant that this guy had been resurrected. A potential enemy who is still alive is an extremely huge threat. After all, Sui's 5 warriors had only lasted for less than an hour. Once they are recovered and Lin Yu's life or death is unknown, the combat effectiveness of Sui's shelter will drop to freezing point. Thinking of this, Sui felt a new sense of crisis. Guard these prisoners well. Send the signalman back. The sniper will continue searching for Mr. Lee. Sui frowned and quickly ordered, "Move all the supplies here downstairs. Take everything that is edible and usable. Don't leave any behind. Go and inform Leah to reinforce her home. She will have all the supplies in the building at her disposal, but she only has 1 hour." At Sui's command, everyone except the sniper started moving. The 3 prisoners were also being guarded and started to do hard labor, carrying supplies up and down continuously, and moving all the supplies that Brother Lee and others had collected hard in the past few days downstairs. 7 big men kept carrying supplies up and down. The speed was not slow, but Sui still thought it was too slow. He kept counting the time in his mind and paced back and forth in front of the group of women in the inner room. Suijin didn't have any bad intentions. He was just thinking about whether he could use these women to provide more security for the shelter. They must have been tortured badly by Brother Lee, so they must hate Brother Lee the most, right? Sui held his chin and murmured, "If I can awaken the hatred in their hearts, they can also become my helpers. After all, the enemy of my enemy is my friend." As for what to do with this group of women, Sui hasn't figured it out yet. He now only wants to increase the available forces as much as possible and unite everything to resist Brother Lee, who can be resurrected. Just as Sui was thinking about how to communicate with this group of numb women, suddenly a new line of prompt information appeared in front of him, which made him stunned on the spot. Chapter 17: Destroy the Shelter. Inherit massive resources. It has been detected that you have stayed in someone else's shelter for more than 30 minutes. The current shelter owner is not in the shelter and is in an unable to resist state. Do you choose to occupy the shelter or destroy it? Conquer and destroy? Sui was stunned. He had been in this room for half an hour without realizing it, triggering the potential Doomsday game mechanism. He recalled carefully, and especially remembered that the group of thugs seemed to have mentioned that they had discovered that killing people could increase their survival points. From this point of view, Doomsday games not only bring terrible natural disasters, but also encourage humans to kill each other. Since even killing is encouraged, it is not surprising that there is a mechanism for destroying and occupying other people's shelters. According to the prisoners, this house originally belonged to Brother Lee, and he later broke through the wall to create a larger floor area. Sui narrowed his eyes slightly. If I operate this option now, Brother Lee's shelter will be gone. Will his talent still exist? The answer seemed to be self-evident. Sui confirmed it quickly without hesitation. Destroy the current shelter. Following Sui's confirmation, a red light instantly appeared in front of Sui. The women looked at this scene in panic and kept curling up in the corners. They are afraid, dreading new tortures and changes. Sui didn't have time to care about the feelings of these poor women. He stared at the red light in front of him, watching it continue to spread, and in a few breaths it covered most of the room. When the red light dissipated, Sui received a new prompt message. Congratulations! You have destroyed a level 0 shelter and received a bonus of 100 survival points. The current owner of the shelter will lose the shelter talents and all Doomsday game mechanism rights. You now have a 30% chance of inheriting the items of the current shelter, and the inheritance ratio is 20%. Since this is your first time destroying a shelter, the succession probability is increased to 100%. The succession rate is increased to 100%. Do you confirm the inheritance? If you do not respond to this message within 24 hours, it will be deemed that you have given up the inheritance. A series of prompt messages made Sui overjoyed. Sure enough, if the shelter is destroyed, he will lose his resurrection talent. Ha ha ha, not bad, very good. Sui couldn't suppress his excited smile, and he didn't notice that the group of women in front of him were looking at him with increasingly desperate eyes. In their eyes, this young man seemed quite normal, but suddenly he started laughing lasciviously. Never mind, at least this guy isn't ugly, so it's not a waste to sleep with him. While the women were trying to comfort themselves in despair, Sui had already confirmed new information. Confirm the succession. Sui raised his eyebrows. He would not miss any opportunity to strengthen himself. Although there might not be any good things in Brother Lee's shelter, more is better, and Sui doesn't mind. Succession completed. The destroyed shelter currently contains 2,876 survival points, an E-level bun making machine, and 3 bottles of F-level cooling fluid. You have perfectly inherited all the above items. The props and survival points have automatically entered your shelter reserves, and you can freely withdraw them after returning home.
Ah?
Sui was stunned, and his eyes widened. That Lee guy is so rich. How come he has more than 2,000 points? Sui murmured, and he suddenly realized that he seemed to have missed something just now. If there are points for killing people and destroying shelters, then there is no way a thug like Brother Lee would not know about this. There are 32 residents in this building, which means there are at least 32 shelters. In addition to Li Ge and Sui's shelters, Li Ge could theoretically obtain at least 3,000 points by destroying the remaining shelters in the first few days, adding in the points gained from killing people outside. All told, the points obtained by Brother Lee could not possibly be less than 3,000 points. As for the E-level bun making machine and F-level cooling liquid, Sui had seen these two things in the survival points mall provided by the shelter. The price is not expensive, but their appearance means that Brother Lee already knows the role of points and has begun to use them in a preliminary way. Then why did he leave so many points unused?
Sui blinked.
He could only think that maybe Brother Lee knew that the shelter could be upgraded. He wanted to save up points to upgrade, or buy some more expensive point items. As a result, before he could accumulate enough points, Sui snatched them away, and all the survival points he had accumulated with great difficulty were used to serve Sui. With so many points, I will become rich overnight. Sui sighed. The last points condition for upgrading the shelter was also met. He could upgrade the shelter. Now Brother Lee's gift of immortality is gone, so even if he is still alive, he is not much of a threat. At least on the surface, even without Lin Yu, Sui still has Li Ye by his side. 2 against 1, and they still can't win? What's more, Sui had no intention of going out casually. All he had to do was let Li Ye continuously improve the defense of the shelter, and he could get stronger every day by staying at home. In this case, Sui didn't believe that Brother Lee, who had lost his shelter, could do anything to him. Boost. Sui picked up the intercom given by the signalman and said solemnly to the male soldiers carrying the supplies, "We only have less than half an hour left. Hurry up. Also, leave 2 people to place some traps at the doorstep. Remember, the more the better. Don't be afraid of wasting supplies. Make full use of your military qualities to maximize the safety of the shelter." Sui planned to make good use of the soldiers in the final time, and let them set up sufficient countermeasures for the shelter before disappearing. "Yes, Chief." A clear response came from the intercom. Strangely enough, the intercom system in the city police station had been broken, but the soldiers who were summoned had an intact combat communication system. It seems that the technological limitations targeted by the Doomsday game are only the technological system originally possessed by humans on Earth. The technological modules born from the shelter mechanism have not been interfered with or restricted. By the way, Commander, what should we do with these prisoners? The signalman sent a message asking for instructions. They seemed to know that they were about to leave and should not leave such a threatening person next to the leader. "Commander, I request that these dangerous elements be shot dead to ensure your safety to the greatest extent possible." The signalman was holding a walkie-talkie in his hand. He saw fear on the faces of the 3 prisoners carrying supplies, but the signalman's eyes remained cold. He was waiting for Sui's order. After a brief silence, Sui's dull response came from the intercom. "Well, kill him." "Yes, Chief." The signalman raised his pistol and pointed it at the prisoner's head.
Bang! Bang! Bang!
3 gunshots were soon heard downstairs, meaning the loss of 3 lives. Sui's heart was not too shaken. After experiencing the bloody battles last night and today, his state of mind had undergone a drastic change. "Old Zheng, don't blame me." Sui murmured in his heart. "I also want to live. I must be cruel." Sui took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and glanced at the women in front of him. This is a new problem, which gives Sui a headache. Kill them? But this group of women seemed to be poor people who were tortured by Brotherly. They had never dealt with Sui, which made Sui unable to do it. He can be ruthless to his enemies, but he still has a hint of conscience towards the weak. Let's drive them away. Sui took a deep breath, frowned, and made a decision in his heart. I cannot kill them, but they cannot stay in this building. I'm going to clean this building thoroughly to ensure my own safety to the greatest extent possible. Living in the end of the world, Sui trusts no one. He could be soft-hearted and not kill anyone, but he would never let the other person get too close to him.
Gada.
Sui replaced the bullets in his pistol and prepared to threaten the women to put on their clothes and get out of the building. Right at this moment, suddenly a soft call came from behind Sui. Captain? Lin Yu. Sui was stunned and turned around reflexively. He was surprised to see Lin Yu, covered in blood, leaning against the door frame, smiling weakly at him. Commander, it's great that you're still alive. Chapter 18 Lin Yu returns. Upgrade the shelter. Lin Yu's body was covered with scars, and there were charred marks on her body from the explosion. Half of her face was covered in blood. Her clothes were torn, and the skin on her hands and arms had been burned away by the high temperature, revealing pink flesh and blood vessels. Lin Yu. Sui almost rushed to her side and supported her. Lin Yu is still alive, which is a good thing, but her condition seems to be only slightly better than death. Lin Yu looked like she had completely lost her fighting ability. Sui could even feel bullet holes on her body that were barely from the explosion and were already soaked in blood. Commander, I'm not in any trouble, I'm still breathing. Lin Yu paused, her voice weak, and she spoke with great difficulty. Those guys used grenades on me, but I also lured the leader into the trap. I found that he seemed to be not afraid of bullets. He was not human and could be resurrected. So, Lin Yu raised her head and looked at Sui, grinning with blood all over her mouth. I tied him up. No matter what he grows, I will continue to chop it off. The head and the limbs. I think as long as I hold on, I can wear him out to death. Just now, that guy's head stopped growing. I think I succeeded in killing him. You should be safe now. Before Lin Yu could finish her last sentence, she fell limply into Sui's arms. Medic! Medic! Sui grabbed the intercom and shouted desperately, "Come up and save people! Quick! Chief, here I come!" The medical soldiers downstairs quickly put down the supplies and ran upstairs. He took Lin Yu from Sui's arms, laid her flat on the ground, opened the first aid kit, and began to quickly examine and treat her. Sui looked at Lin Yu, who was lying on the ground and being treated, with a complicated expression. He still underestimated the loyalty of talents. Lin Yu discovered Brotherly's talent for resurrection, but still didn't think about escaping. She tried her best to hold Brotherly back. Although Lin Yu thought that he had exhausted Brotherly to death, it didn't matter anymore. Brotherly has lost his talent, and he will definitely die if Lin Yu chops off his head. Now Sui just wants to cure Lin Yu as soon as possible. Such a loyal and combat-oriented talent means so much to the shelter. Commander, I can't save her. The medic looked up, apologetically. She has 7 bullet holes on her body and was also hit by a grenade. The skin on her body was basically burned away by the high temperature. She is severely dehydrated, has lost a lot of blood, and her internal organs are also damaged. Surgery is necessary to save her life, but I lack the conditions and medical supplies. She must have been able to hold on until now by sheer willpower. I expect she will die before dark. The medic's report made Sui's expression darken. It was already afternoon, and it would be dark in just a few hours. Even if he took Lin Yu to the nearest hospital to find an operating table and medical supplies, the medical soldiers would not be able to hold on until that time, and they would soon disappear. We must save her. I remember there are healing items in the survival supply store. Sui gritted his teeth, signaled the medical soldier to carry Lin Yu, and then quickly went home. After returning to the shelter, Leah also noticed Lin Yu, who was seriously injured and unconscious. She screamed and rushed over to support him. Leah wanted to ask Sui, but Sui had already rushed into the house. Open the survival point store. After Sui returned to the shelter, he called the panel immediately. A translucent data information was listed in front of Sui. As expected, humans could only perform these operations if they returned to their own shelter. Filter item categories and intelligently adjust purchase requirements. Treat seriously injured combat talent units. Sui has been staying at home these days. He has become familiar with the shelter panel and is proficient in many detailed operations. After a while, the store merchandise information in front of Sui changed rapidly, and new information appeared. There are a wide variety of therapeutic supplies here, most of which have miraculous effects and are not something that can be produced by human technology, but they are very expensive. The cheapest medical supplies cost 500 survival points. Sui did not hesitate too much. After a brief selection, he bought it directly. Sui is very generous to his own people who work for him, even if the other party may be just a clone created by the shelter. Congratulations, you have successfully purchased C-level medical consumables, gene improvement medicine, gene improvement agent, C-level medical consumables, which can inject new gene sequences into the target, comprehensively treat most of the target's injuries, and have a certain probability of optimizing the target's gene sequence and improving the target's physical fitness. Purchase price, 1,000 survival points. 1,000 points price. Looking around the world, there are probably not many people who can pay out so many points in one go. Sui did not feel any reluctance. He bought it directly and injected it into Lin Yu. As the emerald green liquid was pushed into Lin Yu's blood vessels through the syringe, Lin Yu's originally pale face began to turn red after a while, and the wounds on his body were still healing slowly, visibly to the naked eye. Although Lin Yu is still in a coma, according to the latest examination by the medical soldiers, Lin Yu's body is gradually recovering and is expected to wake up on his own in a few hours. It would be good if she could be saved. Sui breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Yu was fighting so hard, there was no reason for him to just leave it alone. What's more, the shelter will need Lin Yu, a combat talent, to support it for a long time in the future. After settling Lin Yu, Sui was about to look up to give new orders to the soldiers, but when he looked up, he saw that the medical soldier who had just stood in front of him had disappeared. Leia, where are those soldiers? They disappeared, boss. Leia squatted at the door and continued to repair the iron gate. She answered without raising her head, "Didn't you just say that? They are a temporary rescue force and will disappear." Well, the time has indeed come. Sui looked down at his surroundings. The walkie-talkie was gone, and all the equipment they brought disappeared. Even the traps that Sui had them set at the door were gone. All of them disappeared, and the entire world was clear of any trace of their presence. Such a pity. Sui sighed, feeling a little reluctant. 6 fully armed special forces form an extremely powerful security force. If we could keep them, the safety factor of the shelter would be greatly increased. Maybe the level of my shelter is too low, and the talent reward only gives me temporary use rights. If the shelter is at a higher level, I might be able to get more combat-oriented talent rewards. Sui now urgently wants to upgrade the shelter, but to be cautious, he first asks Leia to go upstairs and drive the group of women away. Of course, Sui would not be so heartless and would leave the clothes and some food for them. But this group of women definitely cannot continue to stay on this floor. Sui has to maintain the internal security of the entire building to ensure that there are no strangers. After Leia drove the women away, she stayed downstairs and began to transform the external entrance of the building according to Sui's instructions, and by the way, she continued to place new traps in the corridor. The sky outside the window had unknowingly turned dark. The red light disappeared, replaced by a pitch-black night sky. Only the bright moonlight could provide some light for the humans at night. Sui opened the chat interface of the shelter, wanting to observe today's intelligence information, and also wanted to know whether the battle in this building during the day had any impact on the people nearby. Sure enough, as soon as Sui opened the chat channel, he saw many people discussing this matter. Really, that scene felt like a police movie to me. The gunfire only stopped from last night until this afternoon. I live in the building across the street, and I saw a man climbing outside the building like Spider-Man, hiding and fighting guerrilla warfare everywhere. It's a pity that my phone can't be turned on, otherwise I would really record a video for you. I watched them play the game all day long. They were having so much fun. Enjoy it? I don't know how many people died. I can smell the stench of the dead bodies from such a distance. The building must be stinking. Oh, this is the end of the world. Humans have already started killing each other, and they don't know how to unite with each other at all.
No.
Are you really treating this as a gunfight movie? Don't you have other thoughts? I heard people say that a lot of women walked out of that building just now. It seemed like they were kicked out. That seems to be the case. Damn. Get out of here quickly and take anyone in. Hey, wait for me. Leave the one with the biggest but to me. That's what I like. The battle that broke out in Suyi's building obviously attracted the attention of some survivors in the city. However, the mainstream information in the entire chat channel was not all about discussing this matter. After all, it had been a few days since the Doomsday outbreak, and the whole city was filled with chaos and murders. The fighting in Suyi's building was just a ripple in the vast ocean, which could only attract the attention and discussion of the survivors nearby. I can't see any new danger, but at least it's certain that someone is keeping an eye on this building. Sui closed the chat message box and murmured, but judging from the force I displayed during the day, no one should be blind enough to come and cause trouble, right? As long as I can get a few more days of bonus time, I can survive the most difficult pre-apocalyptic situation. Sui took a deep breath, checked the curtains at home, made sure no one would disturb him, and then began to call out the shelter panel. Check the conditions for upgrading the shelter. Congratulations, you have met all 5 upgrade prerequisites. You can currently upgrade the shelter to a -1 level experimental house, or you can continue to wait for more upgrade directions. Start upgrading. Sui did not hesitate and started to execute the operation directly. He didn't have time to choose. There were only 3 types of upgradable shelters anyway, and it didn't matter which one he upgraded. What he cares about is not the type of shelter, but whether the talent rewards after the upgrade will be more generous. Chapter 19 Double Achievement Reward. Awakening of Bloodline. Congratulations. The conditions are met and the shelter starts upgrading. As the information in front of Sui changed, bursts of golden light emerged from the void and spread throughout the room. Everything in the room was covered in golden light. The golden light was dazzling but not harmful to the eyes. However, Sui could not see the specific upgrade process of the shelter. After a few breaths, the golden light dissipated and everything returned to calm. Sui looked around quickly, but was somewhat disappointed to find that the shelter seemed to be still the same as before. It was still the same house he lived in, with no changes in terms of area, items, or rooms. Congratulations, your shelter has been upgraded to a level 1 experimental house. You can get additional area for the 4 adjacent spaces on the left, right, front, and back of the shelter. The area of the new shelter will be 4 to 5 times the size of the previous one. You can now freely transform the adjacent space by consuming supplies and survival points to give your shelter a facelift. The experimental technology tree has been opened in the current shelter. You can arrange suitable talents and improve the technological level of the shelter by consuming supplies and survival points. After a series of new information prompts, Sui suddenly realized, so this is just an upgrade. Do I have to personally come to the specific transformation process of the shelter? Sui discovered that there was an additional option for shelter transformation in the shelter module information in front of him. He reached out and clicked it to open it, and suddenly his eyes became dazed. Sui felt as if his soul was being pulled out of his body. He was looking down from above, observing the entire shelter from top to bottom. All the walls and obstacles were blurred, and green markings were distributed on the floor. These green areas included Suyi's original house and the supplies of his neighbors on all sides. The green area covers the entire current floor, representing that these are all shelter spaces belonging to Sui. Sui also saw a series of construction options pop up in front of him. He could freely place new rooms within these green areas, break through walls, adjust the position of load-bearing walls, or paint the room in different colors and buy various decorations. This has really become a construction game. Sui widened his eyes, feeling that the world had gone completely crazy. Sui felt like he was playing the game, The Sims, experiencing the extremely detailed and complex shelter construction module. But I am obviously a living human being, living on Earth. Why does my survival seem more and more like a game? Sui was shocked. He did not transform the shelter immediately, but quietly exited the construction interface. He needed to calm down and also think about how to adjust the upgraded shelter. Just as Sui had just exited the shelter creation interface, suddenly a new round of information prompts surrounded Sui like a wave. Congratulations! You have completed the shelter upgrade, and your shelter talent has been improved. The effect of the shelter talent, Homebuddy's Home, has been improved. Home of Otaku. Every time you stay in your own shelter for 24 hours, you can randomly get a survival reward that is most needed at the moment. The lowest reward is SSS-level, except for special rewards. And the current talent time is reset to 12 noon. You have 1 hour of exemption time every day, and the exemption time does not affect the reward time settlement. After upgrading the shelter, the talent effect will continue to be upgraded. Congratulations! You are the first survivor in this city area to upgrade your shelter, and you have received a special award, the Pioneer's Horn. Trailblazer's Horn, a SSS-level special item that can be used on any talent and adds the Trailblazer feature. Pioneer trait effect. In this dangerous era, the most important quality for a brave pioneer is luck. and the owner of this trait often has good luck. Special reward? Sui touched his chin, somewhat surprised. He didn't expect that he would be the first to upgrade the shelter in the city, and he could even get rewards similar to game achievements. Just as Sui was checking how to use this reward, a new prompt appeared in front of him. Congratulations! You are the first survivor in this country to upgrade your shelter, and you have received a special award, Awakening of Bloodline. Awakening of Bloodline, a special A-level item that can summon special talents with national characteristics. These talents are growable and have great potential. There are also special rewards. Sui's eyes widened. In addition to being the first in the city, there is also the achievement of being the first in the country. A-level talent, damn. It's time to make a fortune. Sui was grinning so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. He got an A-level talent for free. This was probably the top talent ahead of all the shelters at this stage. But at the same time, Sui also realized some bad news for the whole country. It's been so many days since the apocalypse began, and I'm the only one in the country who has upgraded my shelter. How much pressure must others be under to survive?
Sui siket.
Most of human technological means were restricted, and only some low-end technologies and simple weapons could be used. But this is not a doomsday like the Resident Evil. Under the global high temperatures, air has become people's enemy. After all, even if humans hold guns, it is impossible to stop the spread of high temperatures by shooting. On the contrary, the lack of many life-related technologies has caused humans to lose most of their effective means of resisting high temperatures. Sui's sigh did not last long. He knew very well that he was just an ordinary person and did not have the vision to worry about the life and death of all mankind. Sui just wants to survive and live well. The special rewards for these two achievements are stored in the shelter data, and Sui can use them at any time just like when he first activated his talents. Use Bloodline Awakening. As Sui used the reward, a golden light bloomed around him and quickly condensed into a human figure. Soon, a woman in a white cheongsam stood in front of Sui. Her face was as delicate as a painting, her skin was as white as jade, and her eyes were as clear as autumn water under her slender eyebrows. Gentlemen. The woman bowed gently to Sui. She was like a gentle lady from a classical poem, beautiful and charming, with a faint smile on her lips that made people feel like a spring breeze. May I have your name? Sui looked at the woman and was quite amazed. I didn't expect that I would summon such a beautiful woman. Her appearance is so breathtaking and stunning that I fall in love with her at first sight. Sir, my name is Jiang Xiaozi. The woman bowed her head and introduced herself softly. I am from Jiangnan. It is a great honor to meet you today. Good name.
Sui nodded.
Jiang Xiaozi was tall with elegant curves. The white cheongsam perfectly set off her slender waist, making her look graceful and charming. This woman has a noble temperament and obvious graceful beauty of an Oriental woman, and seems to have an extraordinary background. But what attracted Sui most about her was not her impressive figure under the cheongsam, but the piece of ancient jade worn around her waist, with complex patterns carved on the surface of the jade. The jade was round in shape, emerald green all over, and emitted a faint glow that was visible to the naked eye. Congratulations on winning the A-level special talent, Jiang Xiaozi. An information prompt appeared in front of Sui's eyes, and he opened Jiang Xiaozi's data panel. Sui took a look and his expression suddenly changed. Chapter 20: The Extraordinary Characteristics of A-level Special Talents. The military advisor is in place. Name: Jiang Xiaozi. Age: 28. Type: National Prodigy. Talent level: A-level. Physical strength: 60. Neural response: 68. Endurance: 50. Spiritual will: 368. Self-healing immunity: 211. Talent characteristics: blessed by the national destiny. She possesses the specific qualities of the Chinese nation and is blessed by the national destiny. The shelter she is in will not be harmed by the disasters derived from the end of the world. Filial piety comes first. For every resident over 40 years old in the shelter's exploration rewards, high-level talent acquisition rate, and technology research and development speed will increase by 1%. The maximum blessing limit is 100%. Foresight: anything in the shelter that requires thinking, such as strategy, tactics, scientific research, traps, defense, etc., will not fail. Talent: wide social circle. She has many friends and has a certain probability of bringing new talents to the shelter every month. If no talents are recommended that month, the probability of recommending high-level talents next time will increase. Great resourcefulness. She can effectively pass on her knowledge and experience to others. Through communication and guidance with the residents of the shelter, she can significantly improve their skill levels and thinking abilities. People's will. Her power makes the residents of the shelter united and united. In the shelter, her presence can greatly improve the morale and work efficiency of the residents, making the operation of the entire shelter smoother. Value score, 3,568 points. Hiss. Sui couldn't help but take a breath. He looked at Jiang Xiaozi's talent data again and again to make sure he was not dazzled. This is too exaggerated. Sui murmured. Jiang Xiaozi's data was far better than Lin Yu and Li Ya. The high mental willpower of 368 and the self-healing immunity value of 211 points were not enough to shock Sui. At most, they showed that Jiang Xiaozi's data panel showed that he was a type of person who was not good at fighting. What surprised and shocked Sui the most was Jiang Xiaozi's talent and talents. The 3 characteristics and 3 talents, combined with each other, make Jiang Xiaozi the perfect internal affairs talent. The combined effects of her talents and characteristics can be called a self-propelled group buff. The most important thing is that I have a wide range of friends. Do I need to worry about a lack of talent in the future? I can get one for free every month, and there is a chance that I can get a senior talent for free. Does this count as buy one get in free? Sui laughed so hard that he could hardly close his mouth. The only thing about Jiang Xiaozi's entire panel that made Sui feel a little regretful was that his character put filial piety first. Its effectiveness requires that there are residents over 40 years old in the territory. In an environment where doomsday disasters are rampant, it is difficult for humans who are too old or too young to survive independently. To put it nicely, it is not suitable for survival. To put it bluntly, it is a burden. The first round of doomsday disasters was not very friendly to elderly humans, and it is unknown how difficult the subsequent doomsday disasters will be. The probability of these older humans surviving is very low. If there are too many such people in the shelter, it will also simultaneously drag down the shelter's disaster resistance and development potential. But its effect is really good. 3 types of benefits, up to 100% increase in benefit effect. Sui murmured. The awakening of blood can summon talents with national characteristics. This is indeed unique. Filial piety comes first among all virtues. It seems that if I have time in the future, I will have to find a few old men and women to support. Sui thought about it, and he found that as long as the number of elderly people was controlled, the effect of this talent characteristic would have a great benefit to the shelter. Just as Sui was thinking about how to make full use of Jiang Xiaozi's characteristics and talents, suddenly a woman's slow moan came from the bed behind him. Water, water. It's Lin Yu. She opened her eyes and woke up from her coma. Her injuries had almost recovered, but she was still very weak. Here comes the water, drink slowly. Before Sui could react, Jiang Xiaozi was already squatting beside the bed with water, patiently and gently feeding Lin Yu. You are? Lin Yu was somewhat confused and alert. She saw Sui standing behind Jiang Xiaozi and asked hoarsely, Chief, is she a new member? Sui nodded and emphasized, she is very important. In the future, if there is anything at home, you must listen to her, and I am no exception. Jiang Xiaozi's characteristic effects have fully demonstrated that she is a military strategist type internal affairs talent with extraordinary wisdom. This woman is smart, so it will definitely be right to listen to her advice on everything. Even if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. Because Sui felt that if even Jiang Xiaozi's wisdom could be wrong, he would definitely not be able to figure out where the problem lies. As a leader, you should know yourself so that you can use people well. Very important. Lin Yu chewed on this word, trying to stand up with his weak body. Comrade, I'd better do it myself? She didn't dare to let Jiang Xiaozi take care of her, but Jiang Xiaozi pushed her back. You are injured, you need to rest well? Just listen to her, and have a good rest. Sui smiled and said, then paused and emphasized, you are also very important. Don't take your body lightly. I am important too. Lin Yu was stunned for a moment, then looked up at the man in the darkness. He smiled gently. Our family is now a little bigger than it was a few days ago, and it can be considered to have some vitality. Sui sat on the bed and said to Jiang Xiaozi, including you and me, there are now 4 people in the shelter, namely you and me, Li Ya and Lin Yu. Lin Yu is my first subordinate. He is a soldier and very loyal. Li Ya is an engineer and has some experience in transformation and technological research. Also, I just checked more information related to talents, and I have given you the operation rights of some shelters. Sui paused, his expression very serious. Xiaozi, can I call you that? The future shelter will rely on you to a great extent. I am not a smart person. I hope you can use your wisdom to protect everyone. Jiang Xiaozi nodded gently and responded softly, I will, sir. Lin Yu, who was standing by, looked at the two of them. When they finished talking, Lin Yu couldn't help but interrupt and asked, Commander, have all the enemies been eliminated?
Sui nodded. Yes.
Commander, I seem to remember. You still have some warriors. Where are they? Left already. Sui smiled bitterly and said, there are still 4 people in our shelter now, but maybe there will be more in the future. By the way, Xiaozi, I moved all the supplies back from upstairs today, but I haven't had time to count and organize them yet, so I'll leave it to you. Yes, sir. Jiang Xiaozi nodded, stood up and walked towards the pile of supplies. Her gait is light and graceful, and her movements sway gracefully, which is pleasing to the eye. Lin Yu also saw that the room, which was not originally crowded, was already filled with all kinds of supplies. From toilet paper, toothbrushes to food and drinks, everything was available. The supplies filled the entire room and even outside the door. Hiss! Lin Yu stared with her beautiful eyes, very surprised. Chief, did you rob anyone? Yes, we robbed our enemies. Sui laughed. He was in a good mood. The threat of foreign enemies has been resolved. More talented people have come to the shelter, and everything is moving in a good direction. Even though it was still a scorching doomsday world outside, his shelter had already taken shape and had a certain degree of disaster resistance and protection capabilities. The chief is really amazing. Lin Yu praised sincerely, and Sui shook his head. I'm not that good. If you hadn't fought so hard to hold back the enemy, we would have been in danger. You are the main reason why we were able to survive this crisis. Commander, this is what I should do. Lin Yu lowered her head a little embarrassedly. Even a cheerful girl can be shy sometimes. It is my responsibility to protect you. Sui smiled and nodded, and asked, by the way, the healing item I used on you seems to have some probabilistic effect, and it seems to strengthen you. How do you feel now? Feel it? Lin Yu shook her head. I don't know. I'm a little weak now and can't judge accurately. Sui nodded. Open Lin Yu's panel and took a look. Chapter 21. Open the technology tree. Towards a new life. Lin Yu's basic information has exceeded 100 points, and he has also gained a new talent characteristic. Exploring the mysteries. When she is sent on an exploration mission, there is a small chance that she will get more supplies. In addition, Lin Yu's talent level also changed from D to C, and his combat score also increased slightly. However, her physical condition was marked as weak, and data showed that she would need a 10-hour recovery period. It seems that this 1,000-point gene medicine is very effective. Sui was a little surprised. It's better than I expected. It can be said to be worth the money. Sui analyzed that this might be because Lin Yu's own talent level was not high, and he was lucky enough to encounter the improvement probability of genetic drugs. Speaking of luck, Sui remembered that he still had a special reward that he hadn't used. The Horn of the Opener can add new characteristics to talents, and this characteristic can bring good luck. Judging from the introduction information, although the effect of this thing is not very accurate, it is still a special reward after all. I only have 3 talents now. Who should I give them to? Sui lowered his head and analyzed. According to common sense, it should naturally be given to Jiang Xiaozi, who has the highest level. However, Jiang Xiaozi's overall characteristics and talents are all fixed gain effects, and she herself is an internal affairs talent, and her responsibilities in the shelter are not very related to luck. Even though Jiang Xiaozi mentioned words like strategies and tactics in his characteristics, Sui had not come into contact with these things yet, and he was not sure whether these things required the blessing of luck. On the contrary, Lin Yu, who has always been the main combat force going out to explore for supplies, actually needs a lot of luck. If he is lucky, Lin Yu will naturally bring more supplies. As for Li Ye, Sui didn't consider it at all. What good luck does a scientific research engineer need at this stage? Scientific research must be down to earth. Let's give it to Lin Yu. No matter how you look at it, she will benefit the most from using this feature. Sui didn't say anything. While Lin Yu was resting with his eyes closed, he opened the shelter panel and chose to use a special reward on Lin Yu. When a golden light flashed across Lin Yu's body, a prompt message showed that Lin Yu already possessed the horn characteristics of the opener. Commander, I feel like there's something extra in my head. Lin Yu suddenly opened his eyes, looking a little confused. Sui smiled and comforted. Don't think too much. Just lie down and have a good rest. You are our only protector now. Lin Yu nodded obediently and lay on the bed to rest peacefully. Sui didn't think it was a waste to give Lin Yu a special reward. Nor did he have the idea of saving this special reward and using it when he met a more suitable person. After all, although the current shelter mechanism is very similar to a game, it is based on reality. Appropriate hoarding is beneficial, but mindlessly hoarding everything will only affect your own safety. Some things should be used when they are needed. The sooner you use them, the sooner you can enjoy them. The night was empty and silent. The only sounds in the entire building were the clanging sounds of Leah building safety facilities downstairs and the whispers of Jiang Xiaozi counting supplies. Sui opened the shelter. Only then did he have time to take stock of today's gains. Thanks to today's talent reward, Sui wiped out all the thugs and occupied the entire building in one fell swoop. The supplies that Brother Li and others had been collecting from outside these days were all given to Sui. Sui roughly estimated in his mind that if only 4 people were using these supplies, they would definitely be able to last for several months, and they would be able to live relatively comfortably. After all, while other survivors in the city were still worrying about food and water, Sui had already started using toilet paper, toothbrushes, and other small items to improve their quality of life. By the way, you can also smoke some cigarettes, and there are even some color magazines and comics in the pile of supplies. It seems that Brother Li and his group of men really accept all supplies and bring everything into the building. Having more supplies is naturally good, but there are also some disadvantages. There are too many supplies and the storage space in the freezer is limited, so some food will definitely spoil prematurely due to the high temperature. Sui frowned. I have to hurry up and trade some of the perishable food in exchange for some new things. By the way, how many survival points do I have left? Sui took a look and found that he still had 1,806 survival points. Let's build the empty area of the shelter first. We can use the extra points to see if we can exchange them for some good stuff. Sui opened the construction module of the shelter, and the feeling of being out of body appeared again. Sui's perspective was raised to a bird's eye view again. This time he was not overly shocked or overwhelmed. He immediately began to carefully examine the overall structure of the shelter. This is an old residential building with 8 floors in total and 4 households on each floor. The scope of Sui's current shelter covers the entire 6th floor, which also includes the upstairs and downstairs corridors. According to the trend that the shelter upgrade will spread to the surrounding areas, Sui can easily judge that as the shelter is upgraded, sooner or later the entire building will be occupied. Then, I should take a longer-term view and take the entire building as the main body to build a blueprint for the future. At the moment, I can't build anything directly on the other floors, so naturally I can't build a defense mechanism for the first floor. So defense mechanisms shouldn't be the primary goal, and this thing is too expensive. Sui took a look at the things that could be built in the shelter, including basic defense facilities such as iron doors, electric doors, and wire mesh, and even wall guns, laser traps, and movable floors. It can be said that there are so many kinds of things, with so many categories, that you can't read them all at a glance. But without exception, these things are extremely expensive. Even the simplest iron door requires 100 survival points. The advantage of building a shelter is that it can be completed directly, eliminating the process of collecting construction materials and manual construction. But Sui still had no plan to buy anything from here, because Sui found that the only suitable shelter defense mechanism he could buy now was an iron door. As for the iron door, Leah can make it herself. Although it is not as good and thick as the ones in the shelter building module, it can be used. As for other defense modules, either the shelter level is not high enough, or there are prerequisites. Sui discovered that not only defense modules and items, but most of the things that can be built in a level 1 shelter, including circuits, floor heating, central air conditioning, chemical laboratories, and all other construction information, require the use of a pre-room called a scientific research room. Research room. Consume 1,000 survival points to build a level 1 research room, which can open the technology tree system of the current shelter type and develop more shelter pre-technology modules. I understand. You need a technology tree to climb technology and directly purchase more building items for the shelter. Sui nodded. That makes sense. I feel more and more like I'm playing a game. This set is so authentic. It's really a unique Doomsday survival game that perfectly suits the human beings on Earth, right? Sui had no choice but to tearfully spend 1,000 points to buy the research room. Please select the location for the room. The room range you can choose to place is marked in purple. As the prompt message lit up in front of him, Sui saw that the area occupied by the research room was very large. It is just one room, but it occupies the entire area of the 2-bedroom, 1 living room house next door. The newly upgraded level 1 shelter is not small in size, but 1 room of it occupies 1/3 of it. As expected of the most important pre-construction building, It really takes up a lot of space. Sui sighed, thought for a moment, and chose to place it in a location closer to the inside, farther away from the corridor. This thing is so important, it must be well protected. In case the building encounters the enemy in the future, we must ensure that the research room will not be discovered or attacked by the enemy in the first place. Congratulations, you have successfully set up a scientific research room. Your shelter has opened the technology tree system. Upgrade the Doomsday technology. Transform your beautiful life. The good life? Show me how good it is. Sui rubbed his hands and opened the newly unlocked technology tree module on the shelter panel with a little anticipation. Chapter 22, Upgrading the Technology Tree, Comfort in the Air-Conditioned Room. As Sui opened the technology tree list, densely packed technological projects were listed in front of Sui. At the top of the list is the experimental house sequence, and below it are various scientific and technological projects, such as Basic Power System, Autonomous Water Resources System, Strengthening Basic Defense Measures, Pre-projects for improving living facilities, improving scientific research and exploration capabilities, agricultural automation systems, medical assistance stations, air purification systems, intelligent monitoring networks, garbage disposal centers, central air conditioning modules. The densely packed technological projects almost dazzled Sui. Even if you don't look at the detailed effects of these technological modules, just by looking at the names, you can imagine that if all these technological projects are lit up, the shelter will definitely undergo earth-shaking changes. Let me see the price. Sui checked carefully and murmured, 1,000 survival points for the power system, 1,000 points for the autonomous water resource system, 300 points for the garbage disposal center, 800 points for the central air conditioning module. Fuck, they're all so expensive. Sui took a deep breath and looked at his remaining 800 survival points and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seems that building a shelter is really a long and arduous task. This is just a level 1 experimental house. I guess there will be more expensive technological projects later. Sui was thinking about how to use these 800 points to maximize his profits. Central air conditioning is important, but for now I can still use ice water to fight the heat. Medical aid station? That's good too, but not the most necessary. Well, let's light up the Scientific Research and Exploration Ability Improvement module first. 500 points, but it is the most profitable technology project at the moment. Sui selected this project for a detailed look. Improve scientific research and exploration capabilities. Consume 500 points to send engineers, scientists, and other scientific research talents to conduct research, which takes 10 hours. After the research is successful, the shelter exploration income can be increased by 10% and the research speed of technology tree projects can be increased by 10%. Although these two 10% may not seem like much, if accumulated, the extra income will be considerable. I'll choose this one. There are still 300 points left. Should I keep them or wait and see? Sui was pondering, and his eyes involuntarily fell on the technological projects of the Waste Disposal Center. Garbage Disposal Center consumes 300 points, dispatches engineers, scientists, and other scientific research personnel to conduct research, which takes 12 hours. Builds fully automatic domestic waste disposal equipment in the shelter, which can dispose of all kinds of garbage harmlessly. Exactly 300 points. Sui hesitated only slightly, but finally chose to purchase the project. There was no way. He really couldn't stand the stinky feeling in the house. Without the city's water source, even the toilets couldn't be flushed. Every day, a large amount of excrement had to be accumulated and then treated using the stinking water that was about to rot. Even so, Sui still felt sorry for water resources. Modern humans already have civilization, so it is naturally difficult for them to tolerate living in an unsanitary environment. Excrement breeds bacteria and is also a major threat to human survival. The scientific and technological project has been selected. Please send appropriate talents to the research room for research. Leia. Sui quickly called Leia back from downstairs. Leia poked her head out from the upstairs and asked in confusion, "Boss, you called me? How are the defenses downstairs being constructed?" "It's almost done. In another half an hour, the traps at the entrance and the reinforcement of the gate will be completed," Leia said with a smile. Although this building is a bit old, the materials used are very solid. The original gate was an iron gate, which saved me from having to make large-scale renovations. Well, after you're done with your work today, take a good rest. We have a big project to do tomorrow. Sui nodded and informed Leia about the research projects of the two scientific and technological projects. Leia's eyes lit up when she heard this. "Boss, no need to wait until tomorrow. I can do it now."
Now.
Sui glanced out the window. It was already pitch black. It's past 11 p.m. now, right? It's too late. We should get some rest. Sui didn't want to overexploit his subordinates, but Liya was very determined. No, boss, I can study all night. I promise to complete the mission before tomorrow night. I can issue a military order. Liya was very eager, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with enthusiasm for scientific research. Sui was helpless. He didn't expect that although Liya looked weak, she was actually a scientific research madman. Sir, I also support Miss Li's research now. Zhang Xiaozi at the side suddenly spoke up and gave his opinion softly. This is a critical moment. Our lives depend on this. The sooner Miss Li can play a role, the better we can ensure everyone's safety. So, most of the time we can't pay too much attention to normal work and rest, but we have to make adjustments according to local conditions. Zhang Xiaozi said it very tactfully, and Sui nodded and agreed, okay, let's do it, but it will be hard for Liya. It's okay, boss. Liya raised her hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead, still holding the wrench in her hand, and smiled sweetly. I am happy to do these things. After that, Liya asked Sui about the location of the research room, then went out and dived in. The research room was located in the former neighbor's room. Sui had never seen what a research room looked like, so he followed it out of curiosity. From the outside, the research room looked similar to a normal residential house, with ordinary wooden doors. But after pushing open the door, there were all kinds of strange research props, high-power microscopes, chemical workbenches, high-precision cutting machines. There were many instruments that Sui had never seen before, let alone knew how to use them. But Liu was different. She was familiar with the place and fiddled with the research instruments in the room with light movements. Judging from her expression, she seemed to be enjoying it very much. After observing for a moment, Sui quietly left the room without disturbing him. After returning to the main house, Sui found that he seemed to be the only idler in the entire shelter. Liya is busy renovating buildings and developing technology tree projects. Zhang Xiaozi was busy counting and sorting supplies, while also planning the future development of the shelter. Even if Lin Yu was sleeping normally, he was a hero who was injured, so it was natural for him to sleep. Well, how about I go to sleep and rest too? Sui scratched his head and found that he really had nothing to do. Even if he wanted to further transform the shelter, there was no way to survive. So he simply fell down next to Lin Yu, closed his eyes, and fell asleep. When Sui opened his eyes again, he saw a sea of red. The sky outside the window has brightened, and the scorching sun is still madly torturing every creature on the planet. Perhaps because the threat posed by the thugs had been resolved, Sui slept particularly soundly. When he turned over and got out of bed, he found that Lin Yu had disappeared. At this time, Zhang Xiaozi came in from outside, holding 2 plates of hot and fragrant dishes in his hands. Sir, you are awake. Zhang Xiaozi greeted Sui with a smile. Lunch is just in time. Come and eat. What time is it now? To reply, sir, it is already 12:10 noon. I slept for so long? By the way, where did you cook the meal? Sui sat at the dining table, a little surprised. I remember that the gas in our house was turned off, right? The neighbor downstairs has a gas tank and a stove at home. I thought some of the food and the supplies would not last long, so I decided to cook this meal. Zhang Xiaozi explained gently. You told me yesterday that I will decide all these matters, big or small, by myself, and I don't need to discuss it with you. Yes, that's right. You did a great job. Sui nodded. He looked around the house and sighed. Before going to bed, the whole house was very messy, and the air was filled with lingering stuffiness and foul smells. During the past few days since the Doomsday, Sui had no mood to clean the room, and Lin Yu and Liu were not good at doing housework either. But now, after waking up, the whole house is clean, tidy, and bright. The foul smell in the air is gone, replaced by a faint sweet fragrance. What surprised Sui the most was that he clearly found that the temperature in the room was a little cool, seemingly only around 30 degrees. You have to know that the global high temperature is now 70 degrees, so a temperature of 30 degrees can almost be called winter in relative terms. Why is it so cool? Sui murmured, and he looked around and found that Zhang Xiaozi had adjusted the position of the freezer and placed it at the door of the room. The counter was opened, and a simple device similar to an exhaust fan was placed outside, which was continuously drawing cold air from the freezer into the house. Air conditioning. Sui's eyes widened, feeling incredible. Xiaozi, did you do this? This is not a freezer at all. It's clearly an air conditioner. Sui had thought about doing something similar before, but he never got around to it. Instead, he asked Zhang Xiaozi to take care of these little details. It's not me, it's Miss Li. Zhang Xiaozi shook his head and did not take credit for it. She made the device. This will help Mr. Sleep better. If you don't tell her to, Leah won't take the initiative to do these things.
Sui similette.
He knew Li Yu's personality. She was a relatively passive scientific research talent. Most of the time, she was used to following orders and rarely took the initiative to do anything. But Zhang Xiaozi is different. She is very proactive and will think independently about what to do and try her best to do it well. The brand new house in front of us is the best proof. It was just one night. Sui sat at the dining table, looking at the bright and clean house around him. He felt as if he had returned to the days before the end of the world. But Sui's trance did not last long, and his thoughts were soon interrupted by the new information prompt in front of him. Congratulations! You have stayed in the shelter for 24 hours and have triggered the talent reward. Chapter 23: The Creation Plan of the Big Boss Behind the Scenes. You have obtained the talent reward, SSS-level Technological Weapon Infinite Bullet Rain Rifle, High Sniper Type. As the prompt message appeared, a rifle appeared directly on the dining table. Zhang Xiaozi paused slightly with the chopsticks in her hand, lowered her beautiful eyes, pretended not to see, and continued to eat elegantly. Sui didn't explain, he just picked up the rifle and started to look around. The gun body is made of lightweight and high-strength alloy, shining with a cold metallic luster. Its lines are simple and elegant, and it is equipped with smart sights, silencers, and other devices. There is an energy conversion system in the magazine area, which looks very futuristic and technological. While Sui was observing, the information about the rifle also appeared in front of him. Weapon name: Endless Rain Rifle. Weapon grade: C. Weapon features: unlimited ammo. It can fire unlimited gunpowder bullets, but be careful about the cooling of the barrel. High-precision medium-range sniping. Within a range of 800 meters, it can be adjusted to single-shot sniping mode to maximize power. Silenced. The sound of its firing is slight and almost unnoticeable in non-confined spaces. Basic properties: weight, approximate, 4.6 kilograms. Length, 1020 millimeters. Gun body, plus 450 millimeters. Retractable buttstock. Caliber, 5.56 millimeters. Conversion kits are available for various calibers. Range, effective range is 800 meters. Maximum range can reach 1,500 meters. Firing rate: single shot, 3-shot, fully automatic adjustable. The firing rate in fully automatic mode can reach 800 rounds per minute. Ammunition type: built-in unlimited ammunition, no need to reload. Other types of bullets cannot be used. A rifle with unlimited bullets? And a sniper function? Sui's expression was a little subtle. He felt like he had entered a world of infinite flow. Even this thing exists? The mysterious existence really created a Doomsday game localized for Earth. 4C-level weapons, the reward has been upgraded by 1 level. This may be related to my upgraded talent. But judging from the talent mechanism, what I lack most at the moment is weapons. Sui held his chin and analyzed. If he really counted carefully, there was no shortage of food, water, and talents in the shelter, but there was indeed a shortage of weapons. Including the guns confiscated from Li Ji's gang of thugs, there are only 5 pistols in the entire shelter, but the bullets have been used up to less than 100 in yesterday's battle. Although everyone has a pistol, the remaining bullet reserves are simply not enough to cope with a higher intensity confrontation. So, the talent reward simply gave me a rifle that doesn't need bullets? This is indeed a timely relief, but I don't go out often, so I don't have many opportunities to use this gun. Sui raised his head and asked Zhang Xiaozi, "Where is Lin Yuan?" He planned to give this gun to Lin Yu, who was currently the main explorer of the shelter. Carrying this gun outside would greatly ensure her safety. She went to examine the body. Zhang Xiaozi said softly. She said she wanted to go and personally confirm whether the enemy from yesterday was completely dead. She should be back soon. The corpse of Brother Li? Sui held his chin and murmured, "Come to think of it, I forgot to ask her yesterday how she delayed for so long and how she arrested Brother Li." Sui was very curious about this. That period of time yesterday morning was the most dangerous time for the entire shelter. Fortunately, Lin Yu attracted the attention of all the thugs by himself. Otherwise, Sui and Li Yu would be in danger. I asked. Zhang Xiaozi put down his bowl and chopsticks and patiently explained to Sui. According to Miss Lin, she made full use of the outer walls of the building and the houses' cover during the battle yesterday. This is all thanks to the enemies who broke into the house and ransacked it beforehand, opening most of the doors in advance. Ms. Lin used the outer wall as a passage to catch lone enemies in different rooms, ensuring our advantage in one-on-one combat, thereby continuously weakening the enemy's manpower. Although Brother Lee used a grenade, Miss Lin avoided the damage, so it was not a big deal. As for catching Brother Lee, it just so happens that there is a sniper among the new soldiers you brought, sir. His appearance intimidated Brother Lee and attracted most of his attention. Ms. Lin then seized the opportunity, ambushed Brother Lee, and successfully abducted him. Since Miss Lin has already noticed that Brother Lee seems to have the ability to revive, she deliberately tied up Brother Lee in an attempt to prevent him from reviving again. You already know what happened next. Zhang Xiaozi told the whole story, and Sui asked, "Did Lin Yu tell you?" "Yes, I felt it was necessary for me to get to know everyone in the shelter, so I had some preliminary communication with them." Zhang Xiaozi nodded and praised. Miss Lin's fighting ability is outstanding, and her fighting will is also commendable. She is a rare and outstanding warrior. I think so.
Sui nodded in agreement.
He personally experienced yesterday's gunfight and deeply realized the importance of Lin Yu. But consider how to avoid a recurrence of what happened yesterday. Zhang Xiaozi looked at Sui and suggested, "I suggest that you adjust the direction of the shelter's development and focus on building a defense mechanism inside the shelter." "I think so too." Sui nodded and smiled. "It seems that we have the same idea. I was planning to let Li Ye take charge of this." "No, that's not enough." Zhang Xiaozi shook his head. "In addition to the physical defense measures of the shelter, we also need to build more defense measures." "For example?" Sui humbly asked for advice. "If you have any good ideas, just say it out." "Residents, we need more help." Zhang Xiaozi said softly. "I know that you don't trust outsiders. After all, human hearts are complicated and unpredictable. I understand this very well. But excluding this reason, population is the key factor that makes the refuge strong. If we had a large enough population, battles like yesterday wouldn't be so fierce. The reason why Brother Lee's group is so powerful is nothing more than that they have a large number of people. Actually, according to the information I learned later, Brother Lee does not have outstanding management skills. He just uses the most brutal means to manage his subordinates. These men have no loyalty to him, only resentment and fear. But even so, Brother Lee still has a strong control over them." Zhang Xiaozi paused and promised with a serious expression, "If you are assured, sir, I can take charge of this matter. I can ensure the loyalty of the new residents to you to the greatest extent possible. Gather the strength of all people to forge Mr. S' shield and sword." Zhang Xiaozi said this very seriously, and it was obvious that this was the development direction she had thought of for the shelter. "What you said makes a lot of sense." Sui pondered and frowned. He was thinking seriously about what Zhang Xiaozi said. Sui is cautious by nature, but he is not stupid. He can understand the subtext that Zhang Xiaozi does not say. Judging from the current world situation where Doomsday is approaching, the current policy of staying at home is very good. However, once a Doomsday situation requires people to unite and coexist, the weak shelters are bound to suffer. According to the current mechanism of the Doomsday game, in order for humans to survive better, there will inevitably be a phenomenon of mutual annexation between shelters. Only through annexation can more population and resources be brought in, and population size itself is one of the prerequisites for ensuring survival. Even if Sui did not consider the factor of Doomsday rotation, he still had to consider the threat posed to himself by other shelters as they grew stronger. "I have hesitated before. I prefer to gather more talented people as residents rather than foreign population." Sui took a deep breath. "It is talents like you, Lin Yu and Li Ye, that are the cornerstone of the shelter. Sir, we don't have the means to recruit talent on a stable basis." Zhang Xiaozi looked at Sui, his tone still gentle. "So, you have to learn the art of controlling people. I will help you." Sui looked directly into Zhang Xiaozi's beautiful eyes and suddenly felt some emotion in his heart. "It turns out this is what it feels like to meet a military advisor. You will be persuaded involuntarily." Zhang Xiaozi's analysis was very correct. Sui could not refute it, and nodded in agreement. "Okay, I'll leave this matter to you. However, since you can see my character, you should understand me." "Yes, sir, I know what to do." Zhang Xiaozi smiled and said, "I will formulate a comprehensive recruitment system and management plan for the shelter. I will do my best to tailor a secure identity for you." Zhang Xiaozi's words were very mysterious, and Sui was a little curious. "Which identity is the safest?" Zhang Xiaozi whispered, "The boss behind the scenes." "Hey, Chief, are you talking about something confidential?" Lin Yu pushed the door open carefully. She looked inside but didn't dare to come in, because the expressions of the two people in the room were very serious, especially the leader, whose seriousness was mixed with some surprise and expectation. It's okay, come in. Sui waved his hand and asked, Lin Yu, go check the body. How is it? He didn't come back to life. He's dead. Lin Yu smiled happily. The body was smelly. I threw him out of the building. Sui nodded, handed the rifle in his hand to Lin Yu, and explained the basic information of the rifle to him. Is this for me? Lin Yu was very surprised. She caressed the gun lovingly, with an obsessive look in her beautiful eyes. Soldiers love guns, it's instinct. What's more, this is a rifle with unlimited bullets and is fully functional, capable of coping with many dangerous and complex battlefield environments. Well, give your submachine gun to Xiaozi for self-defense. Captain, that gun doesn't have many bullets left. Only 20 rounds. That's enough. Sui smiled and said, if we need Xiaozi to face the enemy now, it means we are not far from destruction. The chief is right. I will never let anyone hurt us. A determined expression appeared on Lin Yu's pretty face. She tightly gripped the rifle in her hand, her heart filled with confidence that she would become stronger. Lin Yu has indeed become stronger. Her combat power score after recovery is 256 points, and it becomes 456 points after being equipped with a rifle. This rifle directly increased her combat power score by 200 points. According to Sui's own estimation, Lin Yu's current actual combat capability is at least at the peak level of ordinary humans. The only people stronger than Lin Yu are probably the superhumans in the movies. Then let's go. Sui opened the dispatch mission and found that the 3 dispatch missions refreshed daily were upgraded from level D to level C. The more advanced the dispatch missions, the richer the resource collection will probably be. Sui picked a dispatch mission to collect medicines and assigned it to Lin Yu. The most scarce supplies in the shelter at the moment are medicines. Lin Yu received the mission, straightened his chest and saluted. Don't worry, Chief. I promise to complete the mission. After saying that, Lin Yu picked up his gun, took the necessary supplies, and left the shelter. The mission this time takes 12 hours, so she won't be back until the evening. There are still too few combat talents, and there is only one Lin Yu now. Sui sighed. Once she leaves, the safety factor of the shelter will drop several levels. Sir, everything will be fine. Zhang Xiaozi comforted her. Everything will be there. Just take your time. Well, by the way, go on. Sui glanced at Lin Yu's back, then looked at Zhang Xiaozi with interest. Continue to talk about your plan to create a big boss behind the scenes. Chapter 24. City Killer. New Crisis. After Lin Yu left, Sui communicated a lot with Zhang Xiaozi. After Zhang Xiaozi's analysis and explanation, she tailored a behind-the-scenes boss plan for Sui. The specific means was to recruit more human survivors to work for the shelter, build a management system with the shelter talent unit as the core, and use appropriate talent units to restrain the survivors, suppress the unfavorable factors among the survivors, and guide them to work harder for the shelter. Sui, on the other hand, stays behind the scenes, limiting the survivors' opportunities to contact Sui and ensuring that only the most loyal talents are around Sui. As long as we form a perfect shelter management mechanism and form a pyramid system with gentlemen as the priority, talents as the auxiliary, and survivors as the people, we can ensure the safety of gentlemen's lives while also taking into account the rapid development and growth of the shelter. Zhang Xiaozi said softly. As the so-called boss behind the scenes, you don't need to do anything yourself. You just need to give orders and arrange for others to do it. When no one can reach you, your safety is naturally guaranteed. Naturally, you don't need to worry about people's ill intentions. Zhang Xiaozi's words made Sui ponder slightly. This system sounds a bit familiar. Isn't this the emperor in ancient times? Sir, you can understand it that way. Zhang Xiaozi's smile made Sui's heart beat fast. This woman wants to put on a yellow robe. But seriously speaking, what Zhang Xiaozi said is indeed right. If we want to satisfy Sui's vigilance while also taking into account the development and growth of the shelter, then this is the only way to go. Let's give it a try first. No one can predict the future. Sui did not agree directly, but promised to let Zhang Xiaozi arrange it according to this method first. I'll make arrangements. Zhang Xiaozi nodded and reminded him, Sir, the food is cold. I'll go heat it up for you. No, just eat it like this. Sui waved his hand, feeling that he was being a little extravagant. After many days of the apocalypse, most of the food in the city has rotted and even the drinking water has become smelly. Most humans are running out of food and water, so how can they enjoy the delicious food before the end of the world like they can? Although these were just some daily meals, Suyi's treatment was far better than that of most survivors in the city. After lunch, Zhang Xiaozi got up to clean up the dishes, then said goodbye to Suyi. She was going to continue tidying up and planning the entire building. Since Suyi wanted to use this place as her foundation, she naturally had the obligation to take charge of the remaining details. In the afternoon, Zhang Xiaozi was busy tidying up the building, Linyu went out to explore, and Liya was still in the research room tinkering with the technology tree project. In the entire residential building, Suyi was the only one left with nothing to do. I really feel a bit like an emperor. Suyi was taking a nap in bed, feeling the cool air coming from the refrigerator. He sighed in his heart, I am responsible for giving orders, and talents are responsible for implementation. This feels really good. In a daze after eating and drinking, Suyi slept for a while. When he woke up, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There is really no way to kill this empty time as a stay-at-home. After all, there are no computers or mobile phones for entertainment. Suyi can only find something new to do to kill time. Let's check the trading platform and see if we can buy some more bullets. Suyi opened the information interface of the shelter and was about to open the trading platform when he suddenly discovered that there were many new rankings in today's shelter ranking module. In addition to the 3 lists of shelter level list, talent list, and exploration mission list, there are also more, such as the shelter material reserve list, only calculate the income of dispatch missions, the shelter destroyed, killed enemies list, the shelter equipment list, only calculate the shelter equipment, the survival score list. There are so many densely packed lists that there are at least a dozen of them. Suyi took a quick look and found that he actually took the first place on 5 lists. They are first in the talent list, first in the level list, first in the exploration mission list, first in the material reserves list, and first in the equipment list. Am I so amazing?
Suyi blinked.
It was the first time he realized that his shelter was so powerful. It has been less than a week since the first round of Doomsday began, and I have already won the first place in the 5 lists. The more rankings you have, the better. Because after the end of the current round, the mysterious being will distribute rewards based on the rankings. The higher the ranking, the better the rewards will be, and the easier it will be to form a huge snowball-like advantage. Let me see the rest of the list. Hiss, this number 1 on the enemy kill list is too exaggerated. Suyi's eyes widened as he saw that the data of the number 1 on the kill list showed that 161 shelters had been destroyed. This list is almost the same as the PK list in the game. Anyone who can make the list is a battle maniac. But you have to know that this is the real world. Although there are Doomsday game mechanisms, the people killed are all living humans. Destroying 161 shelters means this man killed at least 161 people, possibly more. It's only been a few days since the apocalypse began, and you've killed so many people. I don't believe that all the people you met were enemies. Suyi murmured, I'm afraid. This is a murderer. Whether he kills for fun or wants to gain more survival points through this method, it means that this person is extremely dangerous. Suyi was alert and kept the name of the first on the enemy killing list firmly in his mind. Little White Bear Sanctuary. It seems like a cute name, but what this guy does is not cute at all. What I have seen now are only the city region lists. I am not clear about the situation nationwide or even worldwide. But if we take a small example, if there is such a murderer in Jinling City, the rest of the country may not be much better. It really is the end of the world. There are natural disasters everywhere, and there are also many man-made disasters. It's difficult. Suyi shook his head and looked at his own ranking. He was ranked 53,688th in the kill list and had destroyed 1 shelter. This means that at least 50,000 people destroyed other people's shelters. This is just the beginning, and this number will surely continue to increase in the future. Let's take a look at the rankings again. Well, I'm ranked shit. After 100,000. It doesn't count towards the specific ranking. Suyi widened his eyes and couldn't help rolling them. After his points were consumed, only 6 points were left out of thousands of survival points. 6 points were indeed too few, but Suyi felt that this would not lead to him being ranked in the terrifying ranking range after 100,000. Could it be that at least 100,000 survivors in the city have mastered the method of obtaining points? They either have talent, or they are earning points in some other way. Suyi held his chin and glanced at the first place in the standings. Little White Bear Shelter, current points, 12,620. More than 12,000 survival points. If you include the portion he might have spent, this guy's accumulated points are likely to exceed the 20,000 point mark. This guy is really a tough guy. Judging from the number of shelters he destroyed, he must have at least 16,000 points. The fact that his ranking data is less than this now shows that he has spent some time. His strength should definitely not be underestimated.
수입프로넷.
It was really a headache to have such a murderer in the city, and no specific signs were known yet. Especially for someone as vigilant as Sui, he could already feel that familiar feeling of oppression coming back again. The sense of relief he had just felt for less than a day suddenly disappeared without a trace, and was replaced by a strong sense of crisis that still loomed in his heart. This guy has so many points, but the shelter is still level 0. This is the most dangerous situation. How could someone with so many points fail to meet the requirements for upgrading the shelter?
Impossible.
He must have deliberately suppressed the level of the shelter. He has another hidden card that no one else knows about. Where's this guy? He shouldn't be very close to me, right? Chapter 25. Unexpected events. New feature, My Faith. The more Sui thought about it, the more frightened he became. He quickly and silently closed the ranking data, quickly logged into the trading platform, and began searching for orders related to weapons and bullets. After searching through the screening criteria, Sui was surprised to find that the prices of related orders today had soared several times. The day before yesterday, he was able to buy 100 rounds of ammunition with just a few bottles of ice water and some medicine. Today, the seller's reply was indeed, the price is not enough. The minimum bid the seller wants is 10 bottles of ice water, plus 20 kilograms of storable food or 20 boxes of common medicines. So many supplies can only be exchanged for 100 rounds of the most common pistol bullets. As for the other bullets, they are not for sale. I don't even sell grenades. Only pistol bullets, pistols, and bulletproof vests are for sale. Sui consulted several sellers and found that the prices were almost the same. It seemed like within just one day, this group of people had discussed it beforehand and started raising the price one after another. Strange, why has the price become so much more expensive?
수입프로넷.
He opened the city area chat channel, searched for keywords such as weapons and bullets, and checked the chat history information. He actually found some clues. It's so annoying. Bullets are so expensive today. I can't afford them at all. I finally saved up some resources to buy a gun for self-defense, but it's not enough. It is said that there have been too many gunfights in the city in the past 2 days, mostly due to fighting for supplies, and some people even deliberately massacred weak shelters. The sellers who control the guns decided to control the shipment volume, not wanting humans to kill each other. Nonsense. I don't believe this reason. They clearly want to gain power and authority. That's not the case. There are still good people out there. My female neighbor next door was rescued by a rescue team yesterday. Unfortunately, their supplies are limited, and they can't save too many people. People's minds are hard to predict at the end of the world. Sigh. I feel more and more that there is no difference between the post-apocalypse and the pre-apocalypse. Brother, what do you mean by that? Just think about it. Before the apocalypse, I worked hard for decades to buy a house, but the house price kept rising every year, and I was always just a little short of buying a house. After the apocalypse, I worked hard to save resources to buy a gun for self-defense, but I was always just a little short of buying one. Tell me honestly, is it the same before and after the apocalypse? Has my situation changed at all? I'm still at the bottom of society. Shit, then the Doomsday would have come in vain. The survivors in the urban area complained about this problem yesterday, but Sui was resting after the battle and did not notice it immediately. Originally, during the last few days of the apocalypse, the survivors in the city had initially gotten used to using online trading platforms to communicate with each other and exchange urgently needed supplies to increase the overall hope of survival. There are even some kind-hearted people who are distributing supplies for free or selling supplies at low prices to help others. But it didn't take long before the atmosphere of the entire trading market changed. The saints are gone, the low-priced supplies are gone. Whether it's drinking water, food, or even weapons and equipment, the prices have increased several times. The more necessary a hard currency commodity is for survival, the more expensive it is. Non-essential items for survival, such as toilet paper, toothbrushes, and cigarettes, are very cheap, but no one is interested in buying them. Everyone is now at a critical moment of life and death. We are all worried about our next meal. Who would care about the quality of life? Sui was also troubled by this problem. The cost he originally used for the transaction was ice water, but now it seems that ice water is no longer a necessity in the eyes of the survivors in the city. After all, there is too little ice water. Currently, only Sui can produce it stably, but only 10 bottles a day. Even if all these 10 bottles were sold, compared with the demand market in the entire city, they would be just a drop of water under the scorching sun and would have no effect at all. People have long regarded ice water as a special scarce commodity, a kind of luxury item, and the demand for it has dropped rapidly. Do you think I should exchange the food that is about to expire for the bullets? Sui pondered and tried to communicate with the sellers, but found that they were quite picky. Many foods that are not easy to store are not expensive at all, only half the price of foods that are easy to store. It's only been a few days. How come everyone has become so smart? You're all looking to take advantage, right? Fine, I won't buy it. Sui gave up. He didn't want to suffer a loss. Besides, Sui already had a rifle with unlimited bullets, so his demand for weapons and equipment was not too urgent, so there was no need for him to be the scapegoat. But I have to buy something, right? Sui looked at the list on the table, on which Jiang Xiaozi had listed some of the foods that were about to expire and spoil last night. It would be a huge waste if these things are not disposed of in time and allowed to rot. Eat? Totally can't finish it. There were only 4 people in the shelter, but the amount of supplies stored there was enough for dozens of people to survive for a week. Even if Sui let everyone eat as much as they wanted, they wouldn't be able to finish making all this food. After all, except Sui, the other 3 people are all women. How much can a woman eat? The one who eats the most is Lin Yu. If you can't do that, just buy some cigarettes or something. They're cheap, and I haven't smoked in a few days. Sui pondered over it and felt that it was a bit of a waste to do so. While others are still worrying about going hungry, I am already considering whether I should stock up on a few packs of cigarettes to satisfy my spiritual needs. Just when Sui was thinking about what to buy, suddenly there was a burst of noisy voices coming from downstairs. It sounds like there are a lot of people gathered downstairs. What happened? Sui was startled. He rushed to the window, lifted the gap in the curtains and looked down. He saw a group of women standing downstairs. They were the women he had driven out yesterday, and were also one of the original residents of the building. You've gone and come back? Sui frowned, and his eyes noticed that Lin Yu was also standing among the group of women. She faced the crowd with a gun, seemingly trying to comfort the women, then turned and walked towards the residential building, opening the door using the special method Leah taught her. After a while, the sound of Lin Yu coming up the stairs came from the corridor outside the door. At the same time, new prompt information appeared in front of Sui. Attention! The talent unit Lin Yu you sent out triggered a special event and returned to the shelter ahead of schedule. Trigger a special event and return early? Sui raised his eyebrows and murmured, is this another new mechanism? If we return early, will the amount of materials explored be affected? Sui was not sure. He currently did not fully understand the mechanism of dispatching exploration. Judging from the behavior of the group of women that Lin Yu brought back, the dispatch mission seems to be similar to the survivors looking for supplies outside. The dispatched people will search for supplies within a certain range, and the surviving humans don't have to do it themselves. After a while, Lin Yu pushed open the door and appeared in front of Sui. Chief. Lin Yu spoke in a clear voice and saluted Sui. It's not even dark yet. Why are you back early? Sui looked at Lin Yu calmly. What happened? Yes, Chief. Lin Yu took a deep breath, suppressed the tension in her heart, and reported tentatively. While I was on my way to perform the mission, I found a group of thugs not far from the shelter committing brutal acts against a group of innocent women. As a soldier, I have the duty to protect the people. So you fought off the thugs and brought back the women. Sui opened the curtain again, glanced down, and said in a light tone, you should know that I was the one who drove them out. I know, Chief. Lin Yu lowered her head, her tone a little hesitant, and she tried to explain the matter. I don't want to disobey the commander's order. It's just that they are really pitiful. I know that when it comes to carrying out a mission, there can be no unnecessary softness or kindness. But Miss Jiang mentioned to me last night that if we meet the right person during a mission, we can bring him back to the shelter. She said that our shelter also needs more fresh blood. She didn't specify which one she wanted. So, I feel sorry for them. Chief, I'm sorry. Lin Yu lowered her head. The more she spoke, the less confident she became. She became dejected. I'll let them go now. That's not necessary. Sui waved his hand and sighed slightly. It seems that Jiang Xiaozi is smart. He has been considering the plan to develop the shelter since last night, and is sure that he can successfully convince himself today. At the same time, Jiang Xiaozi also saw Lin Yu's character. Although Lin Yu was a talent unit in the shelter, in Sui's eyes, he was no different from a living person. He repeatedly believed that this group of talents were essentially no different from humans, and Lin Yu's talent background was that of a Chinese military man. From this point of view, Lin Yu is fully aware and willing to step forward to help the weak. Dare to sacrifice and protect the people. These 8 words are the best description of Chinese soldiers. She did this, and Sui had no way to say anything, because everyone has their own characteristics. If it weren't for what Jiang Xiaozi said at noon, Sui would at most ask Lin Yu to drive these women away again. But now, it's different. Go find Jiang Xiaozi. Sui turned around, closed the curtains, and said softly, she will take care of these women. Commander, will we? Will we kill them? Lin Yu was a little nervous and held the rifle tightly in her hand. Sui noticed her little movement and couldn't help but laugh. Lin Yu, if I ask you to kill them, will you do it? Commander, I don't know. Lin Yu suddenly panicked. She widened her beautiful eyes and stared at Sui in disbelief. She couldn't believe that the person she was loyal to would be a cruel tyrant. Can you shoot? Military orders. Military orders are as heavy as a mountain. Lin Yu's body was stiff, and he murmured, I will die to atone for my sins. She could not accept the possibility that she might shoot innocent people, which went against her principles as a soldier. You seem conflicted. Sui smiled and said, I won't give this order. Go find Jiang Xiaozi. She will take in these women. She knows how to arrange it. Commander, you agreed. Lin Yu was immediately pleasantly surprised, and looked at Sui with sparkling eyes, her expression full of surprise. Do I look like a murderer? Sui was puzzled. Lin Yu opened his mouth and shook his head fiercely. No, you are not. You are the greatest leader in my mind. Being able to lend a helping hand to innocent people even when they are in the most difficult circumstances. Such behavior is most likely to impress Chinese soldiers. Okay, I'm not great. I also have my own plans. Sui waved his hands. He was not as good as Lin Yu said. There are too many supplies in the shelter now. Instead of wasting them, it would be better to employ more people to work. Rather than raising a group of men, it is better to raise a group of women. The threats and variables will be slightly lower. Go ahead and find Jiang Xiaozi. Yes, Chief. Lin Yu turned and left excitedly. She wanted to tell the poor women downstairs the good news. Am I taking advantage of this? Sui looked downstairs through the curtains and murmured, but at least I can provide security. It can only be regarded as a matter of mutual benefit. Come to think of it, I'm actually not that bad. The apocalypse hasn't completely changed me. Before Sui finished talking to himself, a new prompt message suddenly popped up in front of him. Congratulations! A special event for a dispatch mission well completed. Your talent unit, Lin Yu, is greatly motivated and gains a new talent trait, my belief. My belief, talent characteristics. She has been sufficiently motivated. The people she is loyal to have strengthened her belief and pursuit, and she has the opportunity to break through and become a higher level of talent. Chapter 26. What a cunning woman. Why? Sui was stunned, a little overjoyed. There is an unexpected surprise? A special event can also be like a mission being completed, and there are rewards? Is it because I satisfied the spiritual needs of the talents that they became stronger? I made a profit this time.
Sui simile 답비례.
Not only did he get a group of hard workers for free, but it also allowed Lin Yu to grow. As Lin Yu is the only military force in the shelter at present, Sui naturally hopes that she will be as strong as possible. Lin Yu is currently at C level. If he can become stronger, he can break through to B level, right? I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't know when this feature will take effect. Sui looked outside the building. Sisterly, do you think will he agree to let us go home? Outside the building, among more than a dozen women, a girl in her early 20s spoke timidly. Her pretty face was pale. There were shocking crimson pinch marks on her neck, and her shabby clothes were in tatters. Even though there was a scorching red sun overhead and the temperature around her was so hot that even stripping naked would result in heat stroke, the girl still struggled to pull at her torn clothes, trying her best to cover more skin. She was terrified. So terrified that she still felt cold in the intense heat. I don't know. An auntie in her 40s looked tired. She looked at the sisters around her and hugged the girl with some distress and comforted her softly. Don't be afraid. I don't think that boy is a bad person. He chased away the bastards surnamedly, so he can be considered our savior. Whether he lets us go home or not, at least he didn't hurt us. It's just a pity for Xiao Wang. If she were still alive. Sister Li took a deep breath, her expression gloomy. The girl in her arms could no longer hold back her sobs, tears streaming down her face. The women around also showed deep resentment on their faces when they heard this. The man surnamed Li and his group of bastards did not even spare the girl's underage sister. If he won't let us in, Where are we supposed to go? Someone spoke in a low voice, with despair and a determination to die in his eyes. Have no idea. A girl shook her head, with deep hesitation in her eyes. Maybe I will really die. They have tried it, and since they were driven away yesterday, they have seen the chaotic outside world. Outside, there was only scorching heat and villains. Countless pairs of eyes from the darkness were staring at this group of women. They had just slept together in the subway station last night, and now 3 of them were missing. 3 women disappeared innocently in the dark night, and no one knew what happened to them. The remaining women didn't dare to stay in the subway station any longer, but when they walked out of the subway station and faced the daytime sun, they were so hot that they almost fainted and had no idea where to go. They walked aimlessly with fear and anxiety in their hearts. Unknowingly, the women returned to the vicinity of the residential building not long ago, but they encountered a group of men who were out searching for supplies and were surrounded on the spot. This group of men tried to forcibly abduct the women. Once taken away by them, they might end up becoming new slaves. At the most desperate moment, Lin Yu appeared, drove away the group of thugs, and took them to the downstairs of the residential building. The girl with the rifle said her commander might be willing to take them in. Chief, this is a title that makes people feel at ease unconsciously. This girl must be a soldier, and her leader must have the same sense of security as a soldier. The women didn't know, and could only guess confusedly in their hearts. Here she comes. She's out. A woman suddenly screamed, and the girls looked up and saw that the door of the building in front of them had been opened. Lin Yu walked out with a rifle on his back and a serious face. The girls noticed that there was a beautiful woman in a qipao in front of Lin Yu, and Lin Yu seemed to be leading with her. You are the new friends that Lin Yu brought back, right? Zhang Xiaozi's voice was very gentle. She walked forward and naturally took Sister Li's hands. Are you Sister Li? I heard Lin Yu mention you. You have always taken care of the girls. You are really a great sister. Me. Sister Li was stunned, not knowing what to say. But fortunately, there was no danger along the way, and you finally came back. Zhang Xiaozi pulled Sister Li and called out to the girls. What are you still standing there for? Come home with me. Go home. A girl in the crowd timidly said. Won't that man chase us away? He chased us away yesterday. He didn't seem to welcome us. Are you talking about Mr. Su? Zhang Xiaozi looked at the girl and explained gently. I asked you to leave yesterday because I was worried that there were still thugs hiding in the building. In order to eliminate the threats in our home, Mr. Su was forced to let you stay outside for a night. But now it has been confirmed that there is no danger in this building. So Mr. Su will send Lin Yu out to look for you as soon as the sun rises. Speaking of which, it was indeed Mr. Su who did something inappropriate. I want to apologize to the sisters on his behalf. Zhang Xiaozi spoke very sincerely, with an expression of apology on her beautiful face. Lin Yu felt a little uncomfortable standing aside. She was not used to being a character in a lie. Although the reasons Zhang Xiaozi gave were a bit far-fetched, in today's chaotic and dark world, even the most far-fetched reasons would be accepted by people, as long as you can survive. Really? Sister Li was a little surprised. She looked at Zhang Xiaozi with gratitude. You are really good people. When the group of soldiers showed up yesterday and killed those bastards surnamedly, I knew you were good people. And all of you are girls, except Su. Yes, Mr. Su. He is the only man. The man you guys are following is definitely not a bad guy. Sister Li's words were a little disorganized. She was very excited at the moment. Being able to return to one's original home without having to worry outside is the survival instinct of all human beings. Come back with me and have a good rest. I have prepared food and water. Zhang Xiaozi paused and smiled gently. You can still take a bath. In this weather, there is a ready-made hot bath. Take a shower. The women's eyes lit up. They hadn't taken a bath for many days. Ever since the man surnamedly occupied the entire building, they have been abused every day and can only eat the leftovers left by that group of men. Delicious food and hot showers. Even though I had experienced these things a week ago, they now seemed like centuries ago. Okay, let's go home. Sister Li nodded excitedly and followed Zhang Xiaozi into the building with her sisters. Lin Yu watched from the side, her eyes mostly focused on Zhang Xiaozi. Lin Yu muttered, no wonder the leader values her. She is such a cunning woman. Zhang Xiaozi turned around. Ms. Lin, what are you talking about? Nothing. Lin Yu waved her hands quickly. It was just hallucination. I didn't say anything. Really? Maybe I'm a little tired. Zhang Xiaozi turned around with a smile, and Lin Yu was so scared that she quickly stuck out her tongue. Oh my god, this woman's ears are so sensitive. Zhang Xiaozi was very efficient. She brought the women back to the building and arranged accommodation for everyone in just half an hour. They originally lived in the same building, but they lived in different floors and rooms. Zhang Xiaozi did not let the women live together, but asked them to go back to their own homes, clean up the messy houses after the battle, and personally deliver water and food to every household. After enjoying a fairly sumptuous meal, the women took turns washing off the dirt on their bodies in the bathtub on the second floor and changing into their own clothes. In a trance, they seemed to have returned to the time before the end of the world. Apart from the fact that the weather was so hot that it made people dizzy, it seemed as if none of the horrors had happened. But soon, Zhang Xiaozi broke the illusion and gathered the women in the lobby on the first floor. Sisters, everyone should be clear about the situation outside now. Zhang Xiaozi looked at the 12 women in front of him and spoke calmly. The end of the world has come. This is reality. Humanity must stick together to survive. As a woman, I understand better than anyone that under this disaster, the status of women will drop sharply and their survival will not be guaranteed. Although Mr. Su was a man, he was also a benevolent leader who cleared our homes and provided food, water, and safety. This is an extremely rare and precious thing in the Doomsday survival environment. Zhang Xiaozi's tone gradually became serious. In order to protect this peace and harmony, I hope that the sisters can unite and protect our home. Only by uniting can we survive the apocalypse. I don't want anyone to destroy my home, and I don't want anyone to still miss the concept of peacetime. Throw away all your pride. Put away your princess syndrome. Live your life seriously. Zhang Xiaozi's words were very plain and simple, but they still made the women in front of him burst into tears. They have suffered and are more adapted to this sudden doomsday than anyone else. Ms. Zhang, defending our homeland means that do we need to fight? In the crowd, a little girl timidly said, I've never fought with anyone. No, you don't need to take risks. Zhang Xiaozi smiled at her gently, comforting her anxious heart. As for the battle, Mr. Su will arrange someone to protect us. In our shelter, everyone has their own duties. For example, Miss Lin Yu is our warrior. She will naturally do the dangerous work. Zhang Xiaozi looked at Lin Yu, who was standing beside him with a gun, and asked with a smile, Right, Miss Lin Yu? You will protect us, right? I guarantee to complete the task. Lin Yu stood at attention with a snap, head held high and chest puffed out, her pretty face extremely serious. Protecting people's lives and safety. It is my duty and responsibility. This familiar firm emphasis and almost roaring declaration gave every woman a strong sense of security. The declaration made by Chinese soldiers is not just a slogan. It is a traditional quality and instinctive cognition that has been tested by war. So, you don't need to participate in any possible battles. Zhang Xiaozi turned to the women again and said with a smile, Of course, we can't keep idle people in the shelter. We all have to contribute our own strength to make our home safer. For example, cleaning the building, doing laundry and cooking, moving supplies, and helping Liya to renovate and repair the building's defense measures and traps. Doing some work to prepare for a rainy day will naturally and effectively improve the shelter's ability to resist danger when it comes. Before that, I will make detailed division of labor and arrangements based on everyone's expertise and specialties. Everyone doesn't need to be nervous. Just think of it as finding a job with food and accommodation provided. If you think this way, won't you feel more relaxed? Zhang Xiaozi is very good at controlling the situation. With just a few words from her, the women's emotions gradually calmed down, and their faces showed a look of longing and anticipation for a stable life. At this moment, Lin Yu suddenly slapped his head and lowered his voice. Oh no, Miss Zhang. I seem to have forgotten something. I have to report to the chief immediately. Chapter 27. 1 versus 30? Then I'll definitely win. Sui stood by the upstairs window and could see from afar Zhang Xiaozi lecturing the women downstairs. Although I couldn't hear clearly what Zhang Xiaozi said, from everyone's expressions, it seemed that this group of women had been successfully appeased and they began to trust Zhang Xiaozi. What a woman who is good at management. She is indeed an A-level talent. Sui murmured. He looked up at the red sun that was gradually setting. The entire sky was painted deep red, revealing a strong sense of depression and stuffiness. It's been almost a week. Why haven't we seen any rescue efforts? If foreign military forces collapse due to sudden disasters in China, it seems that the probability of this happening is very low. Where are the soldiers? There are millions of regular troops, city security forces, armed police, special police, and militia. This is almost more than 10 million combat-ready soldiers, Not to mention the veterans who retire every year. Why are they not making any moves? Sui frowned. This was the biggest confusion in his heart. Like all ordinary Chinese people, he always had the thought of waiting for rescue in his heart at the first moment of doomsday. Sui even struggled with the question of whether he should follow the country or stay in the shelter if rescue forces came. Now it's okay. No need to worry, there is no rescue force at all. Not to mention the army, there is almost no news about the police, and there is even no trace of official political power. In the entire city's chat channels, there are only a few shelters claiming to be police officers who are taking in homeless survivors. Apart from this, there is no other relevant information or clues. This is extremely unreasonable. As far as I know, there is a military district next to Jinling City. The city's military is not weak. The first round of doomsday disasters was just a high-temperature climate, not a sudden attack by cosmic monsters. How could the human military disappear? Sui couldn't figure it out. He had already made a simple estimate and speculation in his mind. Even if the advent of the Doomsday game causes the failure of high-tech items of mankind around the world, communication means aircraft, tanks, satellites, drones, etc. will all be unusable. But we still have people. Soldiers are also people. Even if they are unarmed or armed with cold weapons, they are still a terrifying force that cannot be underestimated. Given the temperament of Chinese soldiers, it is impossible for them to be invisible in the face of a great disaster. There must be something hidden here that I don't know. Is it caused by the Doomsday game mechanism? Sui pondered for a moment, frowning. The derivative disaster destroyed the country's military power? That's impossible. There are so many soldiers scattered everywhere. How can they all be captured in one fell swoop? Even if we killed them all, at least we notified them. Based on the current situation, the mechanism of the Doomsday game is not a random massacre. There is no reason for the mysterious existence to directly evaporate these soldiers and political forces. And it's a heat wave right now. Although 70-degree weather is terrible, it's not enough to kill people for even a second. Where did these people go? Strangeness. Sui murmured. Last time the mysterious existence reported the number of casualties worldwide, could it be that among the 1.3 billion people who died, there were politicians and soldiers from various countries? Sui couldn't understand it, and had no channels to obtain relevant information. His only way to contact the outside world at the moment is through the city area communication channel provided by a mysterious entity, which is similar to a game chat interface. But on this, every day there are only various messages asking for help, transaction information, and size of desperate people, and there is very little useful information. I always feel that there is an invisible force that is deliberately suppressing the self-help and error-correcting capabilities of human civilization. Does that mysterious guy want to see how humans struggle to survive in a situation of complete chaos? It's like watching a nobleman fighting desperately against a trapped beast. It's admiring the despair of human beings. Sui sat on the bed, feeling uneasy. He is now in a relatively safe environment, and his thoughts have naturally become more profound. But the more Sui thought about it, the more he realized that this sudden doomsday game was full of inexplicable mysteries. Chief? Chief, are you there? Lin Yu's voice came from outside the room, breaking Sui's thoughts. Come in.
Yes.
Lin Yu pushed the door open and saluted Sui. Chief, I have important information to report. Well, go ahead. Sui nodded. Lin Yu sorted out his words and said in a deep voice, During my mission just now, I found a large supermarket that was unattended. After exploring, I found that there was no one guarding it, and some of the supplies had been emptied. But there are still a lot of supplies left inside. I can't take too many supplies away by myself, so I asked the chief, should I focus on collecting supplies in this large supermarket next? A large supermarket with no one in it? Sui was stunned and touched his chin. It can't be a trap, right? In such a chaotic situation, no one can eat enough, and the streets are full of hungry ghosts who are risking death from the heat to find food. There are supermarkets that are still unoccupied? This shouldn't happen. If someone found it, it would be emptied immediately. Commander, it shouldn't be a trap. I checked it carefully. Lin Yu shook his head and said seriously, but there are traces of a fight in the supermarket, with bodies and blood left behind. The time of death is probably within the past 2 days. Based on the situation at the scene, someone probably attacked and killed the supermarket owner and the indigenous people, and then took away some supplies. I think the murderer will continue to come to the supermarket to move supplies in the next few days. So, you want to snatch food from the tiger's mouth? Sui frowned. It's a bit risky. Commander, they don't have guns. Lin Yu said in a deep voice. The weapons used to kill people are all sharp weapons. 90% of them are conventional commercial props. There is no military equipment. There are 8 dead bodies and the fight was fierce. It is estimated that there are about 10 to 15 perpetrators. Including the potential backup forces, there are no more than 30 people. And I have it. Lin Yu patted the rifle behind him, his tone revealing extremely strong confidence. 1 versus 30. 1 gun is enough. That's okay. Sui blinked and sighed inwardly. Lin Yu's character background really deserves to be the template of a Chinese soldier. I am truly invincible. The possible 30-odd enemies seemed insignificant to her, and she was still thinking about the large supermarkets that had been occupied by others. Lin Yu, I don't want anything to happen to you. Are you sure you can do it? Sui was also very tempted. Now that the gathering place had just received a group of people, it would definitely be necessary to stockpile more supplies to cope with the consumption. Zhang Xiaozi is confident that he can train these women to become qualified residents of the shelter, but the prerequisite is that Sui can feed so many people. I'm 100% sure that I can definitely win. I mean, I don't want to see you get hurt. You won't get hurt at all. Lin Yu raised his head, his tone calm and firm. A group of thugs without professional equipment, they don't even have the qualifications to see me. Wow. Judging from the tone, you are the queen of female soldiers.
Sui similet.
Lin Yu did have some strength of a soldier king. He had witnessed it with his own eyes. Okay, I agree. You can come up with the battle plan yourself. I'm not a professional, but I suggest you go to Zhang Xiaozi for some advice. She's very smart and can help you. Also, notify Liya and try to make you some more useful gadgets. Sui paused and reminded, don't be anxious, make more preparations, I can't lose you. Sui said this very sincerely. It has nothing to do with love. He really cannot lose Lin Yu. She is too important. Guaranteed to return victorious. Lin Yu saluted and then turned and left. After getting permission, she immediately found Liya, who was in the research room, and together with Zhang Xiaozi, she sought a good strategy to defeat the enemy and a plan to transport supplies. The 3 women stayed together for about an hour before they started to separate. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Sui watched from the window as Lin Yu, Zhang Xiaozi, and 12 women left the building in a mighty manner. Wow, they came out in full force. Except for Liya and Sui, Lin Yu brought all the women out. Each of them held a simple steel spear and wooden shield that Liya had quickly made in the research room. With all the equipment in hand, they had some combat power. I reminded her not to be too anxious, right? Sui was a little uneasy, muttering, it's already night. Are they going to attack at night? What a daring bunch of women. Chapter 28 Using oneself as bait. Murderous intent in the dark night. 8 p.m. Zhang Xiaozi took the girls walking on the streets at night. There were several flashlights in the team, as well as simple torches made by Liya, so there was no need to worry about lighting at night. The most unbearable thing is still the hot climate. The girls are wearing a lot of clothes, wrapping themselves tightly, and even wearing masks on their faces. At first glance, it seemed like everyone was spending winter, with some even wearing down jackets. This is the way Liya teaches everyone to keep warm. By wearing multiple layers of clothing, you can increase the air layer to provide better insulation. For your inner layer, choose a moisture-wicking fabric like cotton or high-tech synthetics to keep your skin dry, while for your outer layer, choose a thicker material to block out heat. It turns out that this is indeed effective. Although everyone is sweating profusely with their clothes on, it is better than exposing their skin to direct contact with 70-degree high temperatures. But even so, everyone still felt dizzy. The high-temperature Doomsday lasted for many days, and everyone still found it difficult to adapt. Hold on a little longer. Zhang Xiaozi distributed a sip of ice water to everyone to lower their body temperature, and at the same time comforted and boosted their morale. Sisters, we are not in a peaceful era now. We can't rely on men. Let's unite ourselves. After this transportation of supplies is completed, I will propose to Mr. Su that we distribute more basic daily necessities to everyone. In addition, this time we are not just carrying food. Things like sanitary napkins and thermal insulation materials are also essential items. Zhang Xiaozi's words made the girls' eyes light up. They were all women, and their lives were a little more troublesome than men's. If we can live in the Doomsday environment just like in peacetime, it would be the greatest happiness. Zhang Xiaozi did not lie. She did plan to move more supplies other than food. After all, the high temperature has been going on for many days now, and most of the food except canned food has rotted. Instead of looking for something edible among a bunch of junk, it is better to take more other essential supplies and prepare for a protracted war. Are we just going to carry supplies? One girl looked at the steel spear and shield in her hand and said hesitantly, I feel like we are going to war. It's just for self-defense. We won't be used in real battles. Zhang Xiaozi comforted them and took the initiative to walk in front of the team. After a while, everyone arrived at a large supermarket 6 blocks away. This is a 7-story city shopping mall with a broken door, a mess of garbage in front of the door, and dried blood all over the walls. The shopping mall was already empty. Zhang Xiaozi led the timid and frightened women into the building, found the signpost, and went straight to the underground supermarket to carry out the transportation. The women were a little timid at first, fearing that a group of thugs would suddenly appear and surround them. But as time passed, everyone was attracted by the diverse material reserves in the building and began to collect and transport them diligently. Everyone knows that the more things you move back home, the less pressure you will have to survive. Now everyone is working hard for his own survival, and no one dares to be negligent. Zhang Xiaozi directed the women to continuously move supplies out of the building, and when there was enough, they would carry them back together. Put heavy, bulky items at the bottom of your cart. With multiple shopping carts connected together, we will have to pull a lot of carts by ourselves. Is there a delivery point nearby? Go get 2 people and bring the delivery point's transport truck over here. It's a great tool for transporting supplies. Zhang Xiaozi directed the women, and at the same time she glanced at the chaotic streets and sighed slightly. Because the apocalypse broke out suddenly, everyone was sent back to their own shelters at the same time, causing the streets to be filled with crooked cars crashing into each other. Even if she asked Leah to open the lock and get a truck, she wouldn't be able to drive in the car. It seems that we will have to trouble everyone to carry it a few more times. Such a large supermarket has a lot of things that can be useful to us. I guess we can't move them all in one night. Zhang Xiaozi murmured, and she looked up again into the darkness around her. Zhang Xiaozi's sixth sense told her that she seemed to be being targeted. The women lit torches and flashlights in the dark, and they were as bright as fireflies in the dark. Deep in the darkness, there seemed to be evil eyes staring at the women greedily. The bait has been laid, but the prey hasn't appeared yet? Zhang Xiaozi raised her eyebrows. She used herself as bait in order to provide Lin Yu with the best sniping environment. In order to take Lin Yu's sniping perspective into consideration, she even placed the gathering place at the entrance of a spacious shopping mall and placed a number of simple torches around it. This is the only light in the darkness, and it will definitely attract predators who come to this shopping mall. Look, boss, there's a fire over there. At the end of the dark street, under the cover of several abandoned cars, the sound of people whispering could be heard. Keep the flashlight low so those guys don't see it. Is Xiaolin back? What's going on over there? I'm back, Brother Lu. There's a group of women over there. I looked, there are no men. They're all women. Oh, are there still women who dare to come out now? Brother Lu touched his big bald head, bent over and squatted behind the car, smiling meaningfully. A group of women who hugged each other are also lambs. It looks like we have to have meat tonight. Brother, don't be so careless. A young man next to him adjusted the frame of his glasses and lowered his voice. Anything can happen these days, and a boat can capsize in the gutter. Let's observe for a while. Brother Lu is right. Let's take a look. The men around him echoed the sentiment. It seemed that the young man with glasses had a very high status in everyone's mind. Okay, let's see. Brother Lu nodded, and everyone waited for another hour with great patience. They hid in the dark and watched as the women carried out more and more supplies from the supermarket, filling up one trolley after another. Brother Lu, I think it's almost time. These women seem to want to go back. If you don't act now, the cooked duck will fly away. Brother Lu, I want to sleep with a woman tonight, please. My child is starving. The men were getting impatient, and many of them spoke in hoarse voices. Brother, what do you think? Big Brother Lu looked at his younger brother, and little Brother Lu touched his chin. Brother, I just thought about it. Where did these women come from? I recalled the intelligence information I collected recently. It is said that there was a gunfight in a residential area nearby not long ago, and it seems that there were also grenades. Then a group of women were seen being chased out, and I suspect this was the group of women. After some analysis, Brother Lu finally made a judgment. They probably don't have any companions. They are probably just a group of women. Although they all have some weapons, women are still women after all. They are not good enough to fight. I think we can take them down, but we have to be quick because the guys from the next few blocks have their eyes on this mall too. I'm afraid if I'm slow, someone will take advantage of me. Everyone nodded in agreement with Brother Lu's analysis. Brother Lu's analysis is spot on. We really need to make a quick decision and not let down our guard just because our opponent is a woman. If these women are robbed by someone, I will definitely not be able to sleep at night. It will be more painful than death. We've agreed in advance that this most beautiful one will go to Big Brother Lou. We'll divide the others. If there's not enough, we'll take turns sleeping on them. Is that okay with everyone? Someone proposed a distribution plan, and the rest of the men agreed. Big Brother Lou frowned and scolded. You haven't succeeded yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Even if we have to separate, it should be the one who wears the cheongsam that my brother sleeps with. The prettiest one must be the one with the best brains. Elder brother. Brother Lou looked at Brother Lou with a touching look on his face. Brother Lou patted him on the shoulder and said, I am very strong, but you are smart. Of course you eat the best. I hope you can find a wife for my Lou family. That cheongsam lady looks pretty good. She's qualified to be my wife. Brother Lou was so moved that he could not wait any longer. The men beside him urged him, Brother Lou, let's get started. Well, let's assign the battle plan. According to what my brother said before, we will form a team of 10 and surround them from both sides. Brother, take 2 people with you and go to the back door to block the escaping woman. We will take action in 10 minutes. Yes, bro. The young man led the 2 men, bent over and groped their way around to the back door of the building in the dark. There were more than 20 men around Big Brother Lou. After waiting in the dark for more than 10 minutes, he waved his hand quietly and said, Brothers, go ahead. Let's get some meat. Hey, come on. Rob the women. Rob the supplies. In the dark night, the men laughed with uncontrollable excitement and walked quickly in the abandoned vehicle with bent backs. They took advantage of the darkness and the cover of vehicles to quickly approach the women at the door of the building. But what they didn't notice was that on the platform of a tall building behind them, there was a woman in camouflage military uniform holding a rifle, and she could clearly see their every move through the high-power sniper scope with night vision goggles. Ms. Jiang guessed right. Lin Yu tilted his head and slowly pulled the trigger. The prey has really taken the bait. Chapter 29. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Kill them all. Hey, beauties. In the darkness, there was a sudden voice of a man greeting with laughter, and the girl closest to her was startled. Ah, who is it? She turned around and saw more than 20 men coming towards them from both sides, holding fire axes, steel bars, kitchen knives, and other weapons in their hands. Sister Jiang. Sister Jiang. The girl was so frightened that her face turned pale. She turned around and ran, screaming loudly. The girls who were concentrating on carrying the supplies raised their heads, and their expressions suddenly changed. They have been surrounded by this group of men. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Jiang Xiaozi's clear voice rose several degrees, and she was still calmly calming the girls' emotions. Take a deep breath and remember what I taught you. When the women heard Jiang Xiaozi's voice, they all became more confident and kept running over from a distance and surrounding her. Some girls remembered Jiang Xiaozi's instructions before leaving, and hurriedly picked up the scattered steel spears and shields from the ground, trembling with their shields in their hands and facing the men. Hey, you still want to use force? Look, everyone, it's the women's army. Ha ha ha, I just like hot women, it's more exciting. The men joked and laughed from time to time, not taking these women who couldn't even hold their weapons seriously at all. They looked at the group of women with ill intentions, and more of their eyes fell on Jiang Xiaozi. There is no other reason. Among this group of women, only Jiang Xiaozi is the most beautiful. She is breathtakingly beautiful, far better than the stars and internet celebrities in peacetime. Under the greedy gazes of the men, Jiang Xiaozi lifted up her sideburns that were blown by the evening breeze and said calmly, Gentlemen, are you out so late to search for supplies? The shopping mall is huge, we have already got some, and we won't fight you for the rest. Jiang Xiaozi spoke calmly, without any fear at all. Searching for supplies? Brother Lou looked at Jiang Xiaozi with interest and smiled. Yes, but this shopping mall is the territory of our White Bear gang. You came here to steal our things. Hand them over. Then compensate us. Brother Lou, how do you want them to compensate you? How else can I compensate? Of course, I'll use my body to compensate. Ha ha ha. The one with the biggest butt. I want that one. I love this one. The men did not hide their purpose and laughed unrestrainedly. Fear and despair appeared in the eyes of the women around Jiang Xiaozi. They seemed to recall the inhuman experiences they had endured in the darkness of the residential building. The shopping mall is your territory? Jiang Xiaozi looked up at the dimmed sign on the building and suddenly smiled helplessly. Okay, it seems there is no room for negotiation. Discuss. What do you want to discuss with us? Dalu took 2 steps forward with a half-smile on his face, approaching Zhang Xiaozi. Do you want to discuss how much dowry you want? Zhang Xiaozi remained silent and stopped talking. He just calmly raised his right hand and clenched his fist. Receive. Lin Yu, hiding on the top floor in the dark, took a deep breath and entered aiming state. What do you mean? Brother Lu was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Are you raising your hands to surrender? If you... Before Big Brother Lu finished speaking, Zhang Xiaozi lowered his right hand, gently bent his index finger, and imitated the action of shooting, aiming at Big Brother Lu. Zhang Xiaozi tilted his head slightly, and the sound of a bullet leaving the gun came from his rosy lips. Bang! Puff! Almost at the moment when Zhang Xiaozi made the sound, Brother Lu's head exploded. Suddenly, red, yellow, and white filthy things splattered everywhere. The women were frightened and their faces turned pale, and they burst into shrill screams, waking up many unfortunate people who had heatstroke in the dark night. Plop! Dalu's headless body fell limply in a pool of blood. The men screamed and were stunned, looking at Dalu's corpse in front of them in disbelief. Their boss was talking and laughing 1 second, and the next second he was shot in the head? Something blew his head off. Could this woman know magic? The men were stunned. They were unable to react for a moment. After all, anyone who saw the scene before them would be stunned. But Zhang Xiaozi did not stop. She changed her target in a playful manner, aimed with gestures, and narrowed her eyes slightly. Bang! Puff! Another man was shot in the head with precision. The huge force of the explosion almost blew his neck off. Ah! Ugh! Ugh! Some women could no longer bear it and began to scream and vomit. The scene before them was too bloody and cruel. There is no mosaic in reality, only the most direct and cruel competition and fighting. The matter of life and death often happens in an ordinary moment. Fuck. This woman knows some magic. A man suddenly jumped up, and everyone reacted and looked at Zhang Xiaozi with fear. Damn it, revenge for Dalu. We can't run, we can't escape. Come at us together. She's alone. There's no way she can handle so many of us at once. Catch her and break her fingers. There are smart men among them who know that they may not be able to escape from Zhang Xiaozi, so they might as well fight to the death. More than 20 men rushed towards Zhang Xiaozi, but Zhang Xiaozi did not retreat and continued to aim with gestures. Bang! Puff! Bang! Puff! Zhang Xiaozi kept switching targets, as if her slender white fingers could really shoot bullets, and the men who approached her fell to the ground one after another. In just a few breaths, 7 or 8 of the men who charged first fell to the ground. These headless bodies formed a natural protective belt, hindering the charging speed of the men behind them. Finished. This woman really knows witchcraft. Whoever she targets will die. Is this her sanctuary talent? A man was so frightened that he stood there in a daze, muttering coldly, aiming in the void. Whoever you point at will die? Help Miss Jiang. Among the group of women, Sister Li, the oldest, was the first to react. She wiped the vomit from the corner of her mouth, suppressed the fear and anxiety in her heart, and encouraged her sisters with a hoarse voice. If Miss Jiang dies, we won't be able to escape. Pick up your weapons. Protect Miss Jiang. Amid Sister Li's screams, the girls woke up one after another, picked up their spears, and dispersed, barely maintaining a special formation to deal with a new charge that might be launched by the men. Although the women's hands holding their weapons were still shaking, their eyes were firm. All conflicting emotions turned into anger at this moment. Whether it was anger towards the man or anger towards this damn Doomsday, it all became the motivation for fighting at this moment. They now have only one thought, to remember the formations and simple combat skills taught by Miss Jiang. Then, fight hard. Their growth is faster than I expected. Zhang Xiaozi raised his eyebrows slightly, feeling a little satisfied. She brought these women out not only to use them as bait, but also to let them witness the brutal battle with their own eyes. Only under the threat of death from blood, broken limbs, and internal organs can they grow quickly. Those who cannot adapt will definitely be eliminated by the times. Only those who can adapt are qualified to become residents of the shelter. At this moment, men, how could they dare launch a new charge? They just stood there in a daze, unable to escape or fight. The extremely beautiful Chong Sam woman in front of me still maintained the shooting gesture, but she was not aiming at anyone. It's over? Lin Yu let out a breath slowly. She was happy to take a break and let the hot gun barrel cool down. You just mentioned the White Bear Gang? Zhang Xiaozi tilted her head, narrowed her eyes, and asked calmly, Where is your shelter? How many people are there? Did you kill the survivors in this shopping mall? Jiang Xiaozi kept asking questions, and the men looked at each other in silence, seeing the fear in each other's eyes. It seems that one cannot offend this terrifying woman. She is beautiful, but also very strong. Beauty. We are good people. We just wanted to say hello to you. A man plucked up the courage and spoke in a hoarse voice, his eyes fixed on Jiang Xiaozi's fingers, afraid that she would aim at him. Greet? Jiang Xiaozi sneered. Answer my question. Jiang Xiaozi shouted, frightening the men so much that they all trembled. Some of them couldn't help but yelled, don't mess around. There's the little white bear shelter behind us. Big Brother Bang is watching us. I advise you to be sensible. Your talent is indeed great, but Little White Bear is even stronger. He is the best Doomsday player in the city. If you let us go, we can pretend that nothing happened and we will never tell anyone about you. Anyway, we don't know who you are, let alone where you are. One man thought quickly and said something that made the other men nod in agreement and look at Jiang Xiaozi eagerly. This statement, which is both a threat and shows that he will not pose any danger to Jiang Xiaozi, is the most convincing. After all, common sense shows that no one wants to make too many enemies in the apocalypse, let alone offend the top guy on the list. The reputation of the Little White Bear has spread throughout the city in the past few days. All survivors who have a shelter panel know the name of the Little White Bear shelter. Even the survivors who have lost their shelter have heard of it. The men felt that as a woman, Jiang Xiaozi certainly wouldn't want to offend the top man on the list. Little White Bear. Jiang Xiaozi did not look surprised, but just remained silent for a moment, as if she was thinking about something. The men nervously waited for the judgment of fate until Jiang Xiaozi slowly raised his left hand. Oh, kill them all? Lin Yu was stunned, held his breath, and pulled the trigger decisively.
Bang! 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 Bang!
In the darkness, there were flashes of gunfire, and bullets were fired silently, blowing up the heads of one man after another. Accurate and accurate. Every shot hits the head. This woman is crazy. She wants to kill us all. Run. Run quickly. You filthy bitch. You fucking pfft. The men fled in panic and despair, but legs were no match for bullets. In this open area, they were the best moving targets for snipers. Lin Yu only took 1 minute to kill all the remaining men. After a moment, there were only headless corpses lying in a pool of blood, like a human slaughterhouse, emitting a terrifying atmosphere that made people's heart palpitate in the middle of the night. Chapter 30. Chief, you are so handsome. At the entrance of the building, the ground was littered with corpses, and the pungent smell of blood was floating in the air, which was very strong. The women were silent. Some looked at Jiang Xiaozi with fear, but quickly looked away. Jiang Xiaozi's cruelty shocked the women. After a while, Sister Li took the initiative to break the silence. She suppressed her nausea about the corpse and took the initiative to call out to the sisters, "Quick, everyone, get moving and clean up the body." Sister Li's thought was simple. Since Jiang Xiaozi killed someone, they had to do something. She killed people, and we bury the bodies. The division of labor is clear, and it also allows us to show off in front of Miss Jiang. It would save her from thinking that we are all useless. If she drives us away out of disgust, that would be okay. But what if she kills us? The women were filled with deep fear, and although they were unwilling, they still held their noses and prepared to work.
No.
Jiang Xiaozi waved his hand, his voice calm and gentle, completely different from the coldness just now. There are so many corpses, it's impossible to clean them up. Let's continue to collect supplies and don't waste time. Oh yes. Sister Li nodded quickly, her attitude much more respectful, and quickly asked the sisters to continue loading the supplies into the truck. There was only one girl, about 17 or 18 years old. She seemed a little hesitant. When she passed by Jiang Xiaozi, she couldn't help but ask, "Miss Jiang, why did you kill them all?" They clearly begged for mercy. The girl looked at Jiang Xiaozi timidly. She had not yet changed her attitude towards life in peacetime and was not used to Jiang Xiaozi's cold-blooded methods. "Hey girl, get to work." Sister Li stamped her feet anxiously and scolded, "Don't bother Miss Jiang. Who are you? Come and work." She was afraid that Jiang Xiaozi would get angry and kill someone. Jiang Xiaozi glanced at Sister Li, smiled and asked the girl in front of him, "I remember you. Your name is Xiaoyan, right? 18 years old, a freshman at Jinling University." Xiaoyan nodded, and Jiang Xiaozi put away his smile and said calmly, "Your sister, who was 15 years old, died in the building. I saw her body. She died a horrible death, and that was the only body I buried with my own hands." Jiang Xiaozi's indifferent words made Xiaoyan tremble all over, and her eyes were filled with tears. Don't cry. Look at me. Jiang Xiaozi suddenly raised her voice. Xiaoyan raised her head and looked at her blankly, with a look of deep grievance. The women around looked at Jiang Xiaozi nervously, fearing that she would suddenly take action. If you had been braver at that time, if you had dared to resist and fight, your sister wouldn't have died so tragically. Ms. Jiang, I can't beat them. I tried to resist, then fight to the death. Being killed by them is better than having your sister end up like this. Jiang Xiaozi's tone was very cold. Xiaoyan murmured, unable to speak, and could only lower her head. Even your sister's death didn't make you realize the truth about this era. How dare you stand here and question me? Either take off all your clothes, find a man to kneel down and beg for safety, or pick up the weapon in your hand and fight to the death against anyone who violates you. Jiang Xiaozi approached the girl, almost face to face, and narrowed her eyes slightly. So, Xiaoyan, what do you want to do? Do you want to fight with me, or do you want to find a good man? I don't know. Xiaoyan's tears fell. She was speechless due to Jiang Xiaozi's forced entry. She just wanted to ask a question. She had no other intention. Miss Jiang, she is still a child. Sister Li hurried forward, pulled Xiaoyan into her arms, and bowed to Jiang Xiaozi with an apologetic smile. You are a magnanimous person. Don't bother with her. I will teach her a lesson later. As she said that, Sister Li hit Xiaoyan's arm hard. So hard that the pain made Xiaoyan cry even louder. It's okay. I don't mind. Jiang Xiaozi said calmly, let her cry. This may be the last time she can cry. Jiang Xiaozi, what do you mean? Sister Li widened her eyes and thought to herself, she wouldn't kill Xiaoyan just because of one sentence, right? Jiang Xiaozi did not answer Sister Li's question. She turned and left, walked a few steps, then turned back to look at Xiaoyan. You just asked me why I killed them all. Mister told me about Little White Bear Sanctuary. He's a murderer. He's the guy who killed the most people in the city. Think about it carefully. Would such a devil who kills without blinking an eye let go of a group of weak women? We have been discovered by them. If we don't silence them, they will definitely come to our door. Xiaoyan, you can be kind, but I hope that next time you are kind, you will think about whether your kindness will kill us. Jiang Xiaozi raised an eyebrow, turned around and glanced at the women. Get to work. Oh, yes. The women nodded quickly, and after hearing Jiang Xiaozi's explanation, they suddenly understood. Miss Jiang did not kill innocent people indiscriminately. She did it to protect everyone. But what Miss Jiang said about a weak woman? To be honest, everyone thinks Jiang Xiaozi is not that weak. She is more like a mass murderer than the legendary serial killer. Sister Li was still trying to comfort Xiaoyan, but was quickly pushed away by Xiaoyan after she thanked her. The girl silently wiped away her tears, put on the steel spear on her back, lowered her head, and continued to go in and out of the shopping mall to carry supplies. This time, she seemed to have to move more things. Although it was very difficult, she still gritted her teeth and persevered with her face flushed. It seemed that she wanted to move her sister's share back as well. The hot evening breeze is blowing. Nothing went wrong for the remaining hours, until 2 a.m. when the team set out on their return journey with a full load of supplies. 4 o'clock in the middle of the night. Sui was awakened from his sleep and heard the chattering of women downstairs, accompanied by clear and pleasant laughter. He was a little curious, so he pushed the door and went down the stairs to the first floor hall. After Sui's talent was upgraded, he had 1 hour of exemption from going out every day, so he didn't have to worry about affecting his talent reward. In the corridor, Sui saw that the hall was filled with various supplies, all piled in shopping carts. The hall was packed with supplies, and women holding torches and flashlights were carefully sorting the supplies amid laughter and laughter. Their laughter was filled with the joy of harvest. This is the joy that cannot be dispelled even by the scorching heat, and it is the hope for survival. Lin Yu stood against the wall holding a gun. She glanced around vigilantly and looked up at the corridor as if she had sensed something. She saw the figure of a man. Snapped. Lin Yu stood at attention instantly and shouted reflexively, "Hello, Chief." At this moment, the noisy women fell silent and the air became quiet instantly. Countless eyes turned to Lin Yu, and then looked in the direction she saluted. In the silent atmosphere, the only sound was the clear and powerful sound of men's boots stepping on the stairs. A man slowly walked down the dark stairs. The women saw Sui, who walked down the stairs with an expressionless face and came in front of everyone. It wasn't that Sui was deliberately being cautious, it was just that he had no experience and could only keep a straight face and not show any fear. Hurry, get up. The women responded to each other, stood up and lined up behind Linyu. Sisterly suddenly lowered her head and called out, "Hello, Chief." The women reacted one after another, shouting, "Hello, Chief! Hello, Chief!" The voices were not quite in unison, but they all revealed awe. There is also a hint of curiosity. The brave girl bravely raised her head and, in the light of the torch on the wall, carefully looked at the leader in front of her. He is quite young and handsome, with regular features and sword-like eyebrows. His fair face looked like that of a scholar, and seemed unrelated to the image of a pot-bellied leader as rumored. The friendly-looking Sui quickly won the women's favor. He looked harmless, and although he had a stern face, he did not look too majestic. On the contrary, he gives people a particularly friendly feeling, making people want to get close to him unconsciously. Sui stood in front of the women. Jiang Shaozi smiled but remained silent, wanting to give the home court to Sui. Lin Yu was even less talkative. She stood behind Sui like a pine or cypress and was the most loyal guard. Jiang Shaozi blinked at Sui with her beautiful eyes, indicating that Sui should say something. This is the first time the chief meets with his own residents. He should say something, or at least say hello. Sui took a deep breath and suddenly felt the pressure on his shoulders. His shelter already has its first residents, a group of women who have experienced hardships and are now relying on themselves and entrusting their lives to him. Indeed, I should say something to make these poor people feel more at ease. Sui slowly opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a clear murmur suddenly came from the group of women. "Commander, you are so handsome." Chapter 31. Shall we sleep on a plain bed? Why? Sui was stunned. The words he was about to say were held back. He could only continue to maintain his serious expression. Jiang Shaozi was understanding. She took the initiative to step forward, broke the silence, and reported to Sui respectfully. "Sir, we have harvested a lot of supplies tonight. Here is the list. I have made a detailed record." Jiang Shaozi pulled out a piece of paper on the ground like a magic trick, which was filled with the contents of the supplies. The women didn't know when she made the record, they just thought the scene was too magical. Sui nodded seriously, looked at the list carefully for a while, and asked in a low voice, "How long will it last us?" Taking into account the problem of food spoilage, it will take about half a month for so many people. Jiang Shaozi also lowered his voice. "If you consider the efficiency of subsequent exploration and material collection, sir, you don't need to worry too much about this problem. I can solve it." Good. Sui nodded with satisfaction. Since Jiang Shaozi appeared in the shelter, he was completely liberated. It really is like the old saying, if you have something to do, use secret techniques. If you have nothing to do, use secret techniques. Anyway, this is the truth. In short, Jiang Shaozi is very capable. You did a great job, and everyone did a great job too. Sui looked at the crowd. He didn't know what happened, but he suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Comrades, you have all worked hard." Oops. When people call me Chief, I just blurt out this sentence out of habit. The women were also stunned, but Lin Yu behind them stood at attention instantly and saluted reflexively. "Serve the people." The women also reacted and shouted in unison, "Serve the people." The voices of the young ladies were clear and pleasant to the ears, and their shouts were much more orderly, with a bit of the aura of female soldiers. Sui looked at the women and seemed to see a hint of excitement in their eyes, which seemed different from the hesitation during the day. These poor women whose shelters were destroyed at the beginning of the apocalypse should have died painfully at the apocalypse. But now, they seem to have found the courage and confidence to live again. Good, very impressive. Sui praised highly and fully affirmed the women's transformation. Jiang Shaozi watched this scene with a smile, and when he paused, he whispered, "Sir, there are things I want to talk to you about. Come up and tell me." Sui nodded and motioned Jiang Shaozi to go upstairs with him. After the two men left, the women in the hall suddenly became excited and started chattering. "Hey, don't you think the commander is handsome?" Yes, still very young." "Wait, why did Miss Jiang go upstairs with him?" Needless to say, the two of them must have. "Sure, you understand. They are such a perfect match. I don't know who to envy now. Who do you think is more powerful between them? Is it the chief?" "No, I think Miss Jiang is more powerful. She must give face to the leader in front of outsiders, but she must be very fierce behind closed doors." "Gentlemen." As soon as Jiang Shaozi entered the room, he knelt down obediently in front of Sui. "Do what?" Sui looked at Jiang Shaozi in surprise. Jiang Shaozi gently took off Sui's shoes and said softly, You are the master and I am the servant. You must respect me outside, and I must abide by the rules inside. I don't have so many rules here. Get up." Sui waved his hand and asked curiously, "By the way, I haven't asked you about your origins in detail. Linyu was born into a modern military family, Leah was born into a modern engineer family, and you are from an earlier generation?" Judging from Jiang Xiaozi's performance, she doesn't look like a modern person. She attaches great importance to rules, and seems to have some kind of traditional adherence in her heart. "Sir, if we look at it in terms of time, I am a modern person." Jiang Xiaozi obviously understood what era it was now. She lowered her head and gently took off Suyi's socks. "If you count carefully, it should be the Republic of China." "Republic of China?" Sui was stunned and murmured, "So, you know why you came here?" Sui has always had doubts about the talent recruitment unit of the shelter. Are they clones, or are they Earthlings summoned from a special time and space? "I guess so." Jiang Xiaozi smiled and said, "My world is a little different from yours, but there are many similarities as well. Anyway, now that I'm here, I will serve you well, sir. After all, I can't go back." Jiang Xiaozi lowered his eyebrows and looked docile, which made Sui a little embarrassed. "What did you want to tell me just now?" "We did have some thugs this evening at the mall," Jiang Xiaozi whispered. "According to their own accounts, they are from the Little White Bear Shelter, perhaps residents, or perhaps subordinates." Little White Bear Shelter. Sui was shocked. This was the refuge of a murderer. This is the first on the PK kill list. How did you do it? Sui stared at Jiang Xiaozi. Jiang Xiaozi raised his head and smiled gently at Sui. "I'll let Lin Yu kill them." "Killed them all?" "At least I killed all of them that I saw," Jiang Xiaozi said calmly. "I asked the girls to act as bait to lure them out, and then after making sure that most of them had appeared, I let Lin Yu take action. At first, I didn't want to kill them all, but after they told me about the little polar bear shelter, I knew I couldn't have it all, so I had to be ruthless." "Xiaozi, you did the right thing." Sui took a deep breath and praised in a complicated tone. He agreed with Jiang Xiaozi's approach. For the sake of his own safety and the shelter's safety, Sui absolutely did not want to deal with this polar bear shelter. At least not now. By silencing all the witnesses, Jiang Xiaozi could at least cut off the clues and avoid bringing unnecessary trouble to the shelter. "It's just that I can't go to that shopping mall anymore." Jiang Xiaozi sighed slightly. "It's not easy to find a place where we can get a lot of supplies for a long time. It seems that Lin, you will have to work hard to search for more things." "It's okay. We'll have all of these." Sui is not worried about the issue of survival. His talent for shelter will definitely solve his current predicament. What Sui is thinking about now is what Jiang Xiaozi did tonight. Although she said it lightly, Sui could hear a hint of blood in her tone. Sui originally thought that Jiang Xiaozi was a smart and gentle woman, a typical domestic affairs talent, not good at military force, but good at strategy and management. But now it seems that Suyi's judgment was wrong. That's right. How could a smart woman who came from the Republic of China era not be ruthless? Sui sighed inwardly. That era was really chaotic. "Gentlemen. Will you hate me? Why do you say that?" Sui looked at Jiang Xiaozi, who lowered her head and gently massaged his calves. She said in a low voice, "I asked Lin Yu to kill so many people. Men probably don't like women like this. You're just trying to protect yourself and me, so why would I feel bad about that?" Sui took a deep breath, tentatively put his hand on Jiang Xiaozi's hair, and stroked it gently. "Don't worry, I won't dislike you. You are my most important partner." Sui could feel that Jiang Xiaozi's body seemed to tremble slightly. Then, she nodded and responded softly, "Yeah, gentlemen. It's late, do you want to rest?" "Well, I didn't sleep well last night. I really need to catch up on some sleep."
Sui similait.
He didn't sleep well last night because he was worried about Lin Yu and Jiang Xiaozi's safety. Although it is still dawn, it does not stop Sui from lying down and sleeping. There's no way. The three women in the shelter are so capable that Sui doesn't need to worry about trivial matters at all. The only thing Sui needs to do now is to stay in the shelter, eat, drink, and have fun, and then wait for the reward to arrive. "Xiaozi, I'm going to take a nap. Call me at noon. I have important things to do at noon every day." "I will, sir." "Well then you." "Hey, Xiaozi, why are you taking off your clothes?" Hey, why are you in bed?" Sui was startled and quickly stepped back to the bed. "Are you sleepy too? Should I give you the bed?" "Gentlemen." Jiang Xiaozi was wearing a red undershirt that looked like a belly band. She lowered her head as much as she could so that Sui wouldn't be able to see her blushing cheeks. Her voice was soft but firm. Sir, I think we can sleep together. It might be better. Shoutzy, you misunderstood. I'm not that kind of person. Sui was stunned, waved his hand and said seriously, you are very beautiful, but we have only known each other for a short time. I can understand your loyalty and dependence on me, but I will not use this to force you to sleep with me. You don't need to do this at all. Sir, that's wrong. Jiang Shoutzy raised her head, her rosy cheeks with confused eyes. You are the one who slept with me. Ah? I sleep with you? Sui was stunned and blinked, still a little confused. I accompany you. You accompany me? We just sleep. Is there any difference? In a moment of silence, Sui saw Jiang Shoutzy lower his head again and said softly, Sir, I'm sorry, I offended you. Jiang Shoutzy bent down to pick up her cheongsam, not caring at all that the perfect curves of her body were exposed in front of Sui. She felt a little disappointed, but not because of Sui's rejection. It's more like a homeless child, wandering lost in the dark. Perhaps talents are also human beings, no different from me. Sui looked at Jiang Shoutzy in silence and called her, Wait, come up and sleep. Sir, do you agree? Jiang Shoutzy smiled happily and faced Sui with her smooth jade-like back. She turned around and folded her cheongsam and placed it on the bedside table. Her unreserved trust and unreserved exposure of herself made Sui unconsciously cautious. Yes, I agree. Sui scratched his head. But, shall we sleep on a plain bed? Sir, you don't want me anymore? I think you would be unwilling. I can be willing. Wait until you remove the word, can someday. Sui shrugged his shoulders. Maybe, you just need a bed to rest peacefully now, not a man like me. Or maybe you just need a sense of home. You come from another world, and are a woman who came from one chaotic world to another. A wandering prodigal son also longs for a warm harbor, and will pay for it something he is unwilling to pay. Gentlemen. Jiang Shoutzy lay down beside Sui with a smile and gently covered him with a quilt. Has anyone ever told you that you are indeed a good person? Shoutzy, in my era, good person is not a compliment. Sir, he is a good man. Chapter 32 New Reward, the Greenhouse Room. A good night's sleep. There was no storm or disturbance, only the man and woman's random thoughts and silence, and Sui's snoring gradually rising. To be honest, Sui felt very comfortable sleeping like this. There was a beautiful woman lying next to me. She was almost naked and her smooth skin felt cool. Sui didn't know whether it was because of the cold air in the freezer or because of the contact of their skin. He was not a rookie, but he felt a rare bit of nervousness tonight. Sir? Sir? When Jiang Shoutzy's gentle voice sounded in his ears again, Sui opened his eyes and found that the sun was already high in the sky. What time is it now? Sui got up from the bed, turned around and saw Jiang Shoutzy had changed into a red cheongsam and was preparing a sumptuous dish on the table. It's already 11:30, sir. You still have plenty of time to have lunch first. Jiang Shoutzy walked slowly to Sui and helped him dress, which made Sui a little uncomfortable. He is a good homebody of the new era and has never experienced the life of a master in the feudal era. Gentlemen. Jiang Shoutzy seemed to see Sui's discomfort, and she whispered, You have to let me do something to make me feel that I am really important to you. All right. Sui had no choice but to relax and let Jiang Shoutzy do whatever he wanted. After washing up, Sui sat at the dining table and enjoyed a sumptuous lunch while asking, What are the arrangements for today's gathering? Rest, remodel, and clean up. Jiang Shoutzy picked up some food for Sui and reported softly, We have just occupied this building. The rooms on the upper and lower floors need to be tidied, and there are many daily necessities that need to be carefully distributed. We now have more than 10 people. Although it's not a large number, we also need a detailed management charter. So I didn't arrange for anyone to go out today. Even Lin, you didn't go out to explore for supplies. After all, we killed so many people yesterday, and there must be someone nearby searching for us now. Jiang Shoutzy paused, then smiled and said, Why don't we take this opportunity to clean up the house? It's a good arrangement. Sui nodded in praise, and Jiang Shoutzy said, For the convenience of management, the 6th floor and above are designated as restricted areas, and non-talented people are not allowed to go upstairs. This way, those women won't be able to contact you, sir. If you want to recruit more residents later, they won't be able to see you easily, which will ensure your safety to a great extent. Jiang Shoutzy paused and said tentatively, Of course, if you need anything, you can tell me at any time. I will select some reliable and beautiful women to bring up. What are you bringing it up for? Sui was stunned and waved his hand quickly. Farewell, I'm not a sex-hungry ghost. We all gather together to survive. There's no need to really treat me as a feudal king. Yes, sir. Zhang Xiaozi pursed his lips and smiled, very satisfied. Su Yi is a traditional Chinese man, whose life creed is to take care of himself if he is poor and to help the world if he is rich. If we don't have the ability, then just live a good life. If we have the ability, we don't mind giving a hand to the poor people. The reason why the Chinese nation has been able to grow and develop to this day is because of this simple concept of survival. Since there is nothing to do today, let everyone have a good rest. Sui put down his bowl and chopsticks. He was full. Tell everyone, don't worry too much about the future. Live a good and down-to-earth life. We will try to give everyone a life of our own according to our conditions. But it also lets everyone know that we don't raise ungrateful people here. Recognize what era we are in and don't be blinded by doing stupid things. It will be too late to regret it later. Yes, sir. Zhang Xiaozi bowed his head and responded respectfully, I will set up good rules and not let you worry. Xiaozi, you are really good. Sui nodded with satisfaction and patted Zhang Xiaozi on the shoulder. Do a good job. The leader is optimistic about you. Yes, sir. Zhang Xiaozi smiled gently and cooperated with Sui very well. After a conversation between the two, Zhang Xiaozi cleaned up the dishes and left the house. Although there is no mission to explore for supplies today, there are still many things to do next. Ever since Sui recruited Zhang Xiaozi, she has been the busiest person in the entire shelter. Sui has basically delegated all major affairs and aspects to Zhang Xiaozi because Sui believes that her management ability is definitely much better than his own. Now that Sui has ensured the extreme loyalty of the talented people, Zhang Xiaozi is now basically second only to him. As for Sui himself, his life became easier and easier after he had Zhang Xiaozi. You can sleep with a soft and beautiful woman in your arms at night, and there will be hot meals when you open your eyes. No matter what you do, there will be someone to serve you, and you only need to give orders to do anything. This is probably just like having everything provided for you. Sui sighed, sitting on the recliner next to the window, squinting his eyes and feeling the warmth coming from the red sun outside the window. Because the cold air transmission mechanism of the freezer was enlarged, the temperature in the room was controlled by Zhang Xiaozi at around 28 degrees, which directly led to Sui feeling chilly all the time and having the urge to bask in the sun. This sounds exaggerated. People outside the shelter are struggling to survive in the high temperature. People die of dehydration or heat stroke every day. Everyone is frantically studying the game mechanics of the shelter, desperately trying to get the meager heat-reducing resources to ensure their own survival. Only Sui, this freak, actually wanted to bask in the sun during this hot apocalypse. In a daze, Sui suddenly felt something flashing in front of his eyes. He stood up from the recliner, opened his eyes, and saw that the time had come and the new talent reward had been issued. Congratulations! You have triggered the talent reward and obtained the sea-level shelter room, crop breeding farm, can be directly settled. As the information prompt appeared, a yellow design drawing appeared in Sui's hand. Sui looked down and saw relevant item information appear on the design drawing. Crop farm, sea-level shelter room, can be placed in the vacant room space of the shelter, needs to occupy 2 room spaces. After placement, a fully equipped farm environment will be automatically generated, and 3 types of crops can be selected for cultivation. Ah? The breeding room? Sui was shocked, because this meant that he would no longer have to worry about food. There is a freezer in the front that produces unlimited ice water, and a breeding farm that takes up an entire room in the back. There is no need to go out to explore for supplies. You can just stay at home and never worry about food and drink. Use it now and see the effect. Sui quickly opened the information panel of the shelter and entered the construction mode. Currently, the shelter's available accommodation area is on the 6th floor. There are actually 4 residential houses on the 6th floor, which are also displayed as 4 rooms within the shelter's building space. In addition to the main house where Sui lives and the research room next to it, Sui also has 2 empty rooms that can be used for other purposes. The reason why Sui left these 2 rooms unused was very simple. No money for resettlement. He didn't have the points to buy a room, but the reward drawings he received today did not require any additional points or resources and could be directly used to build a complete room. Choose a placement. The placement was successful. With Sui's confirmation, the new construction of the shelter was completed. Sui could see a flash of golden light outside through the gap in the iron gate. Sui hurried out and went to the next room. He pushed open the door and saw a field of farmland. The entire room has completely changed. There is no distinction between toilets, living rooms, bedrooms, etc., only flat greenhouse facilities. Here are the necessary facilities for crop cultivation. such as temperature control equipment, ventilation equipment, lighting equipment, sunlight equipment, etc. However, the greenhouse here has not yet been planted with crops. Sui had just stepped into the room when a new message appeared in front of him. There are currently no crops placed in the crop breeding room. Please make a selection. Below the information are lists of various crops, vegetables, and fruits to choose from. There are not many types, about 20 or so, most of which are common types, and there are no surprises. With a try-it-out attitude, Sui experimentally selected 3 cultivation targets: rice, sweet potatoes, and oranges. As Sui confirmed, a white light instantly filled the entire greenhouse room. In just a few breaths, a large amount of crops appeared and filled the greenhouse room. The crops have been identified and are entering the cultivation stage. Fertilization can be performed once a day. The resources for daily fertilization can be 100 survival points, or normal fertilizer resources. Fertilization can double the maturity time. The current basic maturity time is 3 days/10 kilograms of yield each. Hiss. Suyi's eyes widened and he murmured, "This is a divine weapon." Fertilization speeds up the maturity time. Even without fertilizer, the basic maturity time is to produce a yield every 3 days. Fuck, isn't this just free food? Chapter 33: The Preliminary Self-Circulating System of the Shelter. Although the output can only be 30 kilograms in 3 days, you have to know how much there is in the shelter now? There are only 16 people at most. Based on the daily consumption of one person, the daily food output is only 1 to 1.2 gene, not kilograms. If 16 people eat too much every day, they will consume 20 kilograms. This greenhouse room directly meets a small portion of the food expenses in the shelter. And all of these are the basic benefits of the greenhouse without spending anything. If you apply fertilizer, the maturity time will be shortened. In addition, Sui even saw that there were upgradable operations in the information panel of the room. This greenhouse room is currently level 1. As long as the shelter is upgraded to level 2, Sui can consume survival points to upgrade the greenhouse room simultaneously and obtain higher food production. Sui did a quick calculation in his mind and couldn't help but take a breath again. I made a lot of money. If we look at it over a long period of time, the food production of this thing will only increase. Is the C-rank item so powerful? Or, because it's a room-type reward? Sui still didn't quite understand the rules and mechanisms here, but he knew one thing. My talent is really amazing. Today, Zhang Xiaozi decided not to send anyone to explore for supplies, which meant that the shelter would not receive any external income today. As a result, the talent reward gave me a greenhouse room. Don't want to go out and explore? Then just lie down at home. Let's just give up. Enjoy. Why do you want to go out? Wouldn't it be nice to sleep at home with the air conditioner on? Okay. I feel more and more comfortable with this Doomsday. Sui sighed, and suddenly a new prompt message appeared in front of him. Can I use survival points for fertilization operations? Integral? Where do I get points? Lin Yu hasn't brought any dispatch points for 2 days. I'm not a murderer, so how can I get a lot of points? Wait, I remember that I can also use normal fertilizer resources, right? Normal fertilizer resources seems to be human excrement? Suyi's eyes lit up. In ancient times when there was no modern organic compound fertilizer, clever Chinese farmers often used their own human and animal feces for fertilization to help crops grow better. Of course, fertilizing with human and animal manure cannot be done by simply pouring it on the soil. There are still some operating steps for this thing. Sui vaguely remembered that when he was a child at a farm, he often saw his grandparents gathering excrement together and piling it up as if it needed to be fermented. Sui didn't understand the mystery, but he was not panicked. I have Li Ye. I have Zhang Xiaozi. Li Ye is an engineer. Even if she doesn't understand fertilization, she should know something about the related chemical reactions and the results, right? Zhang Xiaozi is so smart, and she was a woman in the Republic of China period. How could she not know how to grow crops? Even if they don't know how to do it, the worst that can happen is that I fail in fertilizing. I can just try a few more times and figure out some tricks. Suyi's eyes lit up. He went out decisively, found Zhang Xiaozi, and told Zhang Xiaozi about the fertilization problem in the greenhouse room. It's such an amazing room. Zhang Xiaozi smiled, then lowered his head and thought, Sir, I also have experience in farming. What you said about using excrement as fertilizer is feasible. However, attention should be paid to the issues of isolation and fermentation. It should not be contaminated by sewage, and the excrement should be mixed with other organic waste, such as straw and wood ash. At the same time, increase ventilation conditions to promote the speed of fermentation. Let the excrement decompose naturally under suitable conditions before irrigation can be carried out. Zhang Xiaozi had just finished speaking when Leah put down her notebook and looked up. Boss, this is actually the decomposition of microorganisms. Fermentation is used to promote the activity of microorganisms and convert organic matter into stable humus. In this way, various nutrients needed for crop growth can be formed. But apart from that, I think we still need to pay attention to the problem of deworming. Although the probability is very low, we still need to prevent it from happening. Leah pondered for a moment. 3 days, about 3 days. I can research a sample pesticide, then we can try it. Ah? You even know how to make pesticides? Sui was stunned. He looked Leah up and down and said, Sister, what kind of god are you? Why do you seem to be omnipotent? Can engineers make pesticides? Never heard of it. Is this difficult? Leah tilted her head, looking a little cute. The equipment in the research room is very complete, and there are all kinds of science and technology books. I don't know how to make it, but I can make it according to the instructions in the book. Besides, aren't we out collecting supplies every day? Ask Linyu to bring me some pesticides. I'll analyze the ingredients, and it shouldn't be difficult to replicate something similar. If this is accomplished, our shelter will be able to form a preliminary self-circulating system and achieve a primary closed-loop structure for the internal circulation of food, drinking water, and sewage treatment. Of course, I still need raw materials to make pesticides. After all, I can't create pesticides out of nothing. Leah spread her hands, looking innocent. The more Sui looked at her little appearance, the more he liked her, and he wanted to hug her and kiss her. Talents. All of them are talents. Sui laughed and said, Okay, I will inform Linyu about this matter. Xiaozi, you should be responsible for the issue of fertilizing with excrement, right? Certainly. Zhang Xiaozi nodded and said with a smile, There are enough people in the shelter. I just happen to be worried about how to deal with everyone's urination and defecation problems if the city's underground system fails. Now it seems that there is no need to worry too much. Okay, it's decided. As soon as Sui made the decision, the two women began to carry out the order. When Leah just stood up and prepared to leave, Sui seemed to have thought of something and asked, By the way, Leah, I remember that I haven't given you any new scientific research project tasks recently. Why are you still hanging out in the research room every day? At the beginning, Sui gave Leah 2 scientific and technological projects, namely the improvement of scientific research and exploration capabilities and the garbage disposal center. The former is an improvement in the effect of exploration income, and the latter is a complete automatic garbage disposal system inside the shelter. These 2 scientific and technological projects have already been developed, but Leah still stays in the research room day and night and rarely goes out. There's nothing to do anyway.
Leah shook her shoulders.
I just read books in there when I have nothing to do. There is a lot of useful knowledge in the research room. I thought if I could learn more, maybe I could help the boss more. Wow, not bad. Sui smiled so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. Good. Very self-conscious. Very motivated. Go and learn. Let's go, boss. Leah waved her hand and skipped out of the room. Look, what a nice girl. Even if there is no task, you must strive to improve yourself, make adequate preparations for the next scientific research task, and constantly recharge yourself. She has such self-awareness as an ox or a horse. She can be called the innate holy body of an ox or a horse.
Chapter 34 Doomsday war Dungeon.
2 worlds fighting together. After the 2 women left, Sui entered a long period of idleness again. To be honest, he suddenly felt that the huge benefits brought by the talent reward just now were actually just a small episode in his long and boring life. So what if there are more and more supplies? So what if talents are becoming more and more useful? I still have nothing to do. Sui lay back on the bench, squinting his eyes, swaying his body, and humming an unknown tune leisurely. Oh, so comfortable. If wasting time is a sin, then I may have committed a heinous crime. Sui fell asleep again in a daze amid the murmurs. When he opened his eyes again, it was dark. From downstairs came the chattering of women, mixed with a little laughter. Sui went downstairs and looked for a while. It was Zhang Xiaozi who was leading the women to complete the first phase of cleaning the entire building. At this moment, they were gathered together chatting and enjoying a moment of warmth. According to the arrangements Zhang Xiaozi had mentioned, she arranged accommodation for the women in the same way as the original residence, but the improvement and cleaning work of the entire building was distributed in groups. At the same time, starting from tonight, there will be at least 3 women taking turns on night duty every day. They didn't need to do anything. They just had to ensure the safety of the building's gate, and then stand on the top floor to look around to see if anyone was approaching. If you find any abnormality, just notify Lin Yu directly. As long as Lin Yu can detect the intruder as soon as possible, there won't be any big problems. Under Jiang Shaoxi's arrangement, the entire residential building has entered an orderly development track. Su Yi did not disturb the women's happy time. He went upstairs silently, took out the chess set prepared for him by Jiang Shaoxi, and started playing chess by himself. A leader should always act like a leader. It's not good to read comic books every day. Playing chess can help you cultivate your sentiments. Sui touched his chin and then sighed. The main reason is that he has finished reading all the comic books, many of which he has read several times, and he really has nothing to do in his spare time. Without electricity, many conventional recreational activities would be impossible. It's getting a bit boring if it goes on like this. We have to find a way to save more survival points and quickly have Leah research the technology project for the power system. Sui murmured, "When the time comes, I will find a high-end computer and play 700 large-scale standalone games. I will play them all night long. When I get tired of playing, I hold Xiaozi and sleep. When I wake up, I eat. After eating, I continue playing. This day is so nice." Sui sighed. If his parents were around, they would at least criticize him for not doing his job properly. But Sui felt that it was already the end of the world. So why bother about having a proper job? Just make sure you are alive and living better and better, that's all. If you can't even live happily, what's the point of living? Sui has no great ambitions, nor does he have the spirit of self-sacrifice to save all mankind. He just wanted to live well and make the shelter safer and safer. So safe that even if the sky collapsed and the earth broke apart outside, he would be safe and sound. When Sui was imagining a beautiful future life, suddenly a mysterious voice that he had not heard for a long time sounded in his ears. Warning! Attention all Doomsday gamers. The important rules of the Doomsday game will be announced below. Why? Sui was stunned. His expression suddenly became serious, and he was also surprised in his heart. This mysterious voice has appeared since the first day of the apocalypse, and there has been no sound in the following days. Until now, it has only been game-like prompts guiding human survivors on how to use the shelter. Now its sound appears again, as if foreshadowing that something big is about to happen. At the same time, in every corner of the world, all human beings put down what they were busy doing and waited nervously in silence for the mysterious sound. After a slight pause, the mysterious voice appeared clearly in the ears of every human being. Start global notification now. It's almost been a week since Doomsday game came. Now open the War Doomsday module, the test of the clan. At the beginning of the end of the world, all militarized humans and politically related groups in the world have been temporarily stored and frozen, and the Earth world no longer exists. The Earth War Doomsday dungeon environment has been built. Militarized personnel from various countries will soon be deployed into the relevant dungeon world. Sui held his breath, listened carefully to the sound, and frowned as he analyzed its meaning. A copy of the end of war? I was wondering why there were no soldiers, police, or officials around. It turns out they were all in temporary storage. Now, is it their turn to appear? But from the looks of it, it seems they can't return to Earth yet. Sui murmured, but before he could make a new judgment, the mysterious voice sounded again. Now carrying out national notification in the Chinese region. In 1 hour, the National Doomsday online voting will begin. Voting content. Determine the difficulty of the war dungeon faced by the militarized population of the country. The higher the difficulty, the richer the reward will be after winning the Doomsday War. After the voting is over, you will immediately receive a random survival material reward based on the difficulty. There is only one ongoing Doomsday War every month. If the country fails in a Doomsday War, 1/10 of the country's population will be randomly wiped out. At the same time, you will receive a huge boost in the next war. If you do not perform the elimination operation after failing in a war, you will receive a huge weakening penalty in the next war. Before the war, humans in the war copy world can send a small amount of information, limited to 10 words, to their country to guide national voting. Notice to both parties. 1. You only have one life, so please carefully consider the difficulty of the war copy you choose. 2. War copies affect the difficulty of human survival in a large area. If the war goes to a disadvantage locally, it will still lead to Doomsday-related disasters in the country. 3. The war copy world and the Doomsday world on Earth are not interconnected. If all military humans in the country die in the war copy, they will only lose the qualification to participate in the next war copy, and will not continue to wipe out the survivors in the country on Earth. vice versa. 4. While the war is ongoing, survivors of their own country can watch the development of the Doomsday War situation in their own country, or they can spend survival points to watch the entire war situation process. 5. While the war lasts, military humans in the Doomsday War copy can view the number of survivors and the survival situation in their own country on Earth. At the same time, after winning a small-scale battle, they can choose between the two operations of ask and give. Request. As a winner, you can forcibly request from the survivors in your country to obtain the materials, items, and props of designated or random survivors. Before the first battle, you can perform an additional operation. Give. As a winner, you can give to the survivors in your country and give materials, items, props, etc. to designated or random survivors. Before the first battle, you can perform an additional operation. A 1-hour buffer period begins now. Please be prepared, both parties in all countries on Earth. Let yourself live, or let them live. I look forward to seeing your choices. As the mysterious voice finally disappeared, Sui stood there for a long time, unable to speak. He understood. The Doomsday game is basically a joke on humanity. People who are alive today may still feel that the first round of high-temperature Doomsday is nothing special. As long as they master the cooling measures, they will not die. Even if their shelter is well-equipped, they can get very moisturized. But tonight's mysterious announcement has made people all over the world realize the cruelty of the Doomsday game. All humans related to global militarization have entered another Doomsday copy world. They have to perform their duties as soldiers, experience the Doomsday War. Non-military survivors experience round after round of Doomsday disasters on Earth. It is the survivors of the military, and the Doomsday battle is constantly going on outside the Earth. If there are casualties on both sides, it will be real death. But if that were all, then both sides could only be said to be surviving in different Doomsday environments. The mysterious existence eliminated technology and took away soldiers, perhaps just to increase the cruelty of the Doomsday. But the bad thing is, this guy is trying to play with people's hearts. The two parties are in different worlds, but they can closely influence each other. The survivors on Earth can vote to decide the difficulty of the Doomsday War faced by their own soldiers. Do you want to be comfortable? Then let your country's soldiers experience the most difficult Doomsday War. You will be rewarded with survival supplies immediately. The soldiers in the Doomsday copy have won a hard-fought victory in a life-and-death war. Do they want to win the next victory and survive? Then let the survivors of the country donate their supplies, plunder their own people, and strengthen their own hope of survival. Of course, you can also choose not to oppress each other. As long as you can withstand the increasingly difficult survival pressure, you will face more, bigger, and more oppressive life and death crises. This is the truth of the Doomsday game, Sui murmured, and he felt his palms trembling a little. No one can completely control their own destiny. We can't be complacent just because we have good talents, because both of us are affecting each other. The human heart is unpredictable. This is not only a test for all of humanity from the external environment, but also a test for the hearts of everyone in the world. It was not until this moment that Sui truly understood. It turns out that this week, the Doomsday game has only been a relatively smooth opening. The heat crisis, the urban chaos, the rampant thugs, the lack of resources, these are just appetizers. They are not even the real Doomsday. It won't be long before humans will solve or adapt to them themselves and return to a normal and peaceful life. Is this the end of the world?
No.
The real Doomsday crisis has just begun. It is up to humans themselves to decide the direction of the future and struggle between life and death. Is it betrayal or sacrifice? All decided by humans themselves. Chapter 35, Two-Way Run in Doomsday. Sui fell into silence for a long time. He has understood one thing. The end of the world has truly begun. No one can escape the disaster, and no one can control their own destiny. This is a threat brought by human beings themselves, which is far greater than any natural disaster. I'm afraid there's nothing I can do, at least right now. All I can do is wait. Sui took a deep breath and opened the city chat channel, which he hadn't opened for a long time. The city chat channel, which had been filled with all kinds of rescue information and desperate complaints, suddenly exploded. All the survivors who are still alive in the city have heard the relevant notice just now and know about the Doomsday War copy. Fuck. I was wondering why the soldiers disappeared. Turns out that bastard has temporarily stored them all. I have been struggling for a week, drinking urine for a week. I have been eating moldy and rotten food for a week. I have been waiting for the country to rescue me. But now they tell me that the country can't save me? What kind of Doomsday War are they going to force? Stop it. I took advantage of the Doomsday to collect a lot of gold, jewelry, and banknotes, just waiting for the country to recover from the Doomsday, and then I will buy the bottom and make a fortune. And now you are playing the same trick on me? The people in the city were desperate, and the first to collapse were the survivors who believed that the apocalypse would soon be over. It's not these people's fault for being naive. After all, considering China's national conditions, what's the point of Doomsday? Are you kidding me? My army will enter the city and resolve the issue in minutes. What natural disaster or man-made disaster can't be resolved? Can a nation that has survived for 5,000 years be defeated by such a small difficulty? Do you really think this is a foreign country where a few zombies will cause everyone to howl? A flood will cause the whole country to collapse? It's not that we are too confident, it's just that these things are not difficult. But now, no one is confident anymore. The mysterious existence seemed to have the ability to read minds. It seemed to know what the Chinese people's trump card was, and directly took it away. Hey, you guys have no more cards, just keep playing the Doomsday game. The Chinese nation is a unique nation where heroes protect mortals. Now that the heroes have been kidnapped, only a group of mortals are left. Isn't this intentional trouble? But if it were really that simple, it wouldn't be a devastating start. After all, new heroes can be born among mortals. The mysterious existence seemed to have anticipated this, and directly launched a mechanism for survival in two worlds at the end of the world. Soldiers are fighting a doomsday war in another world, while ordinary people are experiencing rotating doomsday disasters on Earth. This move is so damn vicious. It's like cutting off the source of the trouble. One survivor yelled in the chat channel, "Let them fight. Why do they have to drag us into it?" This whole set of mechanisms may seem complicated, but in fact, there are only two words between the lines: infighting. It wants us to fight among ourselves, to make us vote for the military to fight the most difficult war, and then let the military continue to drain our resources to ensure the next victory. After these operations, if one side does not trust the other, they will be in a situation where the soldiers fight the most difficult war every day, while we wait to die without food or water. Even some survivors who did not quite understand the mechanism realized the seriousness of the problem after seeing the relevant explanations. This is not just a provocation between one or two people. The mysterious existence is playing tricks on all of humanity. It forcibly divides human beings into two camps and makes them send each other to hell with their own hands. What should we do? How are we going to vote later? Let's set the lowest difficulty. After all, don't forget there is an erasure mechanism. If we lose, any of us could die. The highest difficulty. Trust our soldiers. I need supplies. I'm fucking dying of thirst. If you don't give me something to drink, I won't even live to see the day I'm wiped out. Damn it, even the officials have been taken away. There's no one to take the lead. Who should we listen to? How about compromising and choosing a medium difficulty? Actually, I don't have much water left to drink. What the hell is this discussion? We don't even know how difficult the vote is. Besides, it's not just our city that has the final say. There are so many places in the country. I have a feeling that I'm going to die. That doomsday war doesn't sound easy. That thing didn't say when it would stop. Are they going to fight endlessly? If that's the case, since they know they can't come back, will they prioritize their own survival? The entire chat channel was in chaos. People were talking about it at once, and some were trying to maintain order by shouting loudly, but it was useless. At such times, only the presence of special identities such as senior officials and local soldiers can deter chaos and make the people obey. Besides, no one is willing to submit to anyone else, so why should we listen to you? Sui knew this very well. He just silently watched the chaos in the city continue to expand. Perhaps this is what the mysterious being hopes to see. Just a few words have thrown the remaining survivors into confusion and created more despair about the future. It just wants to play with us.
Sui sikhet deeply.
There were many survivors like him who were observing silently. No one knows what others are thinking, and no one is even sure whether the soldiers who have been withdrawn still have their usual persistence and principles. After all, this is not an era of peace, nor is it an era of war between humans on Earth. This is the end of the world. It is a cruel game completely controlled by a mysterious entity. Voting begins now. Before the voting phase, guidance information from the country's doomsday war will be announced. The following is the specific content of the guidance message. A new prompt appeared in front of everyone, and a special red dialog box slowly emerged on the last line. That was the guiding message, just 10 simple words. Choose the highest difficulty. Trust the People's Liberation Army. Just a moment. The whole city was silent, with no one making noise or complaining. Everyone stared blankly at the line of words in front of them. These short 10 words made people's blood boil, and they felt like crying.
No hesitation.
No fear. There is only firm persuasion, and we don't need to ask about the possible choices of victory or defeat. These 10 simple words are almost engraved in the pupils of every Chinese survivor. Extremely hot. Is it because the higher the difficulty, the more survival supplies we get?
Sui murmuret.
This was the only answer he could think of. There is no other reason, just to rescue the people. Although we are no longer on Earth, we will still do our best to rescue the people of the country. Because sacrificing for the people is the foundation of every Chinese soldier and the most solid foundation of the great faith. You guys are a little too straightforward. Sui smiled bitterly. He raised his hand and felt some wetness on his cheek. But I was really moved. Sui took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down because he saw a new prompt message appearing in front of him. The guidance information has been announced, and online voting will begin below. The difficulty options for the first round of the country's Doomsday War are as follows. Single choice. Grade F, Grade E, Grade D, Grade C, Grade B, Grade A, Grade S. The difficulty increases gradually. Starting from level D, survivors of the country can obtain basic survival supplies, and the material rewards will be doubled with each increase in difficulty. The theme type of this country's Doomsday War: bloody battle. War scene: random city map environment in the country. Duration: 21 days. Winning condition: destroy all enemies. Defeat conditions: our team is completely wiped out or the time limit expires. The number of soldiers participating in the war is limited to 100,000, and they are not allowed to carry any war equipment. They must annihilate 10,000 demons within 1 month. Mad Demon: a monster from the Doomsday War world, humanoid in shape, 3 meters tall, with twice the speed and strength of a human, and possessing biological characteristics of rapid healing, disease infection, low-altitude flight, and advanced intelligence. Starting from level D, the number of demons doubles with each difficulty increase, and the highest level S is 160,000 demons. The voting will start now. The voting time is 1 hour. If you do not vote within the time limit, it will be regarded as choosing the D-level difficulty. At the bottom of the latest information, there is a picture of a madman. This is a humanoid monster with red skin, a huge body and strong muscles. It is wearing heavy armor and holding sharp cold weapons. Sui looked at the picture of the monster silently. He could simply analyze some key war intelligence. 1. The monsters are wearing armor and holding weapons, which means they have the intelligence to make and use tools, and their intelligence may be comparable to that of normal humans. 2. With a height of 3 meters, he is almost twice the height of a normal human being and almost as tall as a floor. He completely crushes human soldiers in terms of strength and speed. 3. It is almost impossible for human soldiers to defeat such monsters with bare hands and without weapons and equipment. Even 10 people fighting one is difficult. After all, the monsters can fly. Even I can analyze it. So they who are far away in the war dungeon world should also know how dangerous this guy is. Let alone 160,000. Even 1,000 would be extremely difficult. Sui took a deep breath and silently chose his own voting option. F level. Lowest difficulty. It's not that I don't trust you, I just don't want you to have a hard time. I don't need these material rewards. Sui looked at the F-level reward information prompt. If this difficulty is successfully selected, the number of enemies will be reduced to 50%, allowing humans to use corresponding weapons and equipment that do not exceed the number of combatants. But at the same time, after winning a war of this difficulty, the war material rewards received by the survivors of Earth's own country will be reduced to 20% of the basic reward. This is the reason why Sui chose Class F. It can be analyzed from the information prompts that various types of military technology equipment on the Earth should have been forcibly taken away along with the soldiers. So these days, what is sold in the market are only pistols and the like. Even submachine guns and rifles are rarely seen, and there are not many grenades. If tanks, planes, and other weapons are brought over, we should have a better chance of winning if we take them with us. However, I guess not many people would choose this difficulty. Sui smiled bitterly. He knew that he was doing useless work. The difficulty of level F is simply unattractive. Not only does it not give any material rewards, but there are not many benefits even after winning. Nowadays, there are very few people in the country who can have enough food and drink like Sui, and most of the survivors are still unable to get rid of the basic needs of survival. Lack of food, lack of drinking water, and lack of means to resist heat. This is the most deadly thing. Who can give up life-saving supplies at the critical moment of life and death and give the hope of survival to the country's soldiers who are far away in other worlds and don't know whether they can come back? At least, I can live with my conscience. Sui closed the voting interface and sat quietly in the dark, waiting for the final voting results. During this long period of time, Sui thought a lot. The only thing I can do to help them is to vote. Whether they can win or not, I have to ensure my own safety first. The Doomsday rotation mechanism hasn't disappeared yet, and now there's an additional Doomsday war mechanism. This means that I have to make sure I survive the ever-rotating Doomsday disasters, and also have to have the good luck of not being on the random elimination list. Sui frowned, feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. This is really difficult. I have to think of a way to at least ensure that I can survive first without the risk of dying. Sui was lost in thought when he was suddenly interrupted by the information that appeared in front of him. He looked up and saw that the voting results were out. Let me see, it should be D-level. B-level is actually possible. It can't really be S-level, right? Sui looked up and was stunned. He saw the answer. Difficulty level of the first round of National Doomsday War, F-level. Chapter 36. Is this choice surprising? They are the people's soldiers. Grass. Sui was so shocked that he jumped up. It's fucking F-level. It turns out that the Chinese people are so simple and honest. What is going on? There are thugs everywhere out there doing evil things. And then Doomsday War voted for an F grade? No, where are the thugs? Don't you want supplies? Could it be that you guys committed all kinds of evil in the apocalypse, but when the time comes for your country to face a life and death crisis, you all become righteous again? He is truly a hero of the outlaw forest. Sui was a little confused. He felt that reality was a bit magical, or perhaps his understanding of the Chinese people was a bit too one-sided. Not only Sui didn't understand, people in the city chat channel were also outraged. F-level? No. Weren't you guys just discussing voting for C? Didn't you guys just discuss voting for C? Didn't you say we should get at least some survival supplies? Fuck. I was fooled. It turns out that I'm the only one who voted for S-level, and I'm the only one who listens to the country the most. You all want to rebel. It's so funny. You guys don't trust the PLA, do you? The result of the F-level voting is so difficult that even the soldiers are confused. Brother soldier, I'm a master of the world, but my family asked me to play at the lowest difficulty level? Oh, they just cried and yelled that they were dying of thirst, and this is the result? They would rather die of thirst than vote for F grade? You can't say that. I just looked at the specific number of votes. F-level is only ahead by 83 votes, which is a slight advantage. The second place is B-level difficulty. I will miss the B-level material reward. So, you voted for B-level? I remember you just said that you were about to die of thirst. Are you B-level or S-level? I voted F, thank you. Anyway, I may not live long. So let the soldiers live a few more days, L. Fuck. Brother, tell me your location. I'll send you some supplies. The survivors on the city chat channel were all shouting in disbelief. And at this moment the shadow and discomfort of Doomsday were slightly diverted. All survivors across the country were paying attention to the voting results, and some even pulled out all the voting information data for a closer look. First vote, F-level. Second vote, level B. Third vote, level D. Fourth vote, S-level. Only these four have the largest number of votes. Level B and level D are easy to understand. Although everyone feels sorry for the soldiers, they also want to get some supplies to solve their urgent needs. The S-level voting data is not difficult to explain. After all, it is the country that allows me to vote, so I should just trust the country blindly. But the F-level vote took first place, which was something that no one in the country expected. Maybe there are many people who have the same idea as me. Sui murmured, with an uncontrollable smile on his face. I just wanted to give it a try and live up to my conscience, but, oh my god, everyone wants to live up to their conscience. The Chinese people are so awesome that they can even come up with such a voting result. Sui had to admit that many people, including himself, did not really understand their own nation. Therefore, they create some miracles in reality that even they themselves do not believe in. Sui was very happy and had the urge to talk to someone. So, Sui found Jiang Xiaozi and told her the whole story. With Jiang Xiaozi's intelligence, she quickly analyzed the reason. Sir, there is no need to be so surprised. Since ancient times, the Chinese people have great wisdom hidden in the people. Moreover, the people are more intelligent nowadays, so they naturally understand the principle that both people and land exist. regardless of whether the troops have any hope of returning. Just from the perspective of the mechanism of the Doomsday War, treating the soldiers well is treating ourselves well. Let the soldiers win at the lowest cost. Once they win, they can be given operations and survival supplies. In order to ensure that the military does not anger the people and make the next vote more difficult, they will naturally not carry out the solicitation operation. As long as there is a certain basis of mutual trust between the military and civilians, it will be easy to form a situation of mutual support. Even though we are far apart, we can still see each other from afar and take care of each other. Zhang Xiaozi's analysis made sense, but Sui felt that ordinary people might not think that complicatedly. By the way, Xiaozi, do you know the purpose of the Chinese Liberation Army? Sir, I have only been here for a short time, so I don't know yet. Zhang Xiaozi was very modest. Is there a detail that I don't understand? Is my analysis incorrect? It is correct, but maybe people haven't thought about it that deeply. Sui touched his chin and suddenly smiled. The word people is in front of the PLA. This is the People's Army. The Army's belief is to protect the lives and interests of the people. Do you think that ordinary people would be willing to let such an army fight a war that is too brutal? I see. Zhang Xiaozi was stunned for a moment, then smiled softly. Maybe they are soldiers like Lin Yu. No, Lin Yu is a soldier like them. When Sui was about to say something else, a new prompt message suddenly appeared in front of him. Congratulations. The military has decided to use the additional pre-war operational permissions and activate the Give module. All survivors in the country will soon receive random rewards from their own army. Congratulations. You have received a random reward, D-level water purifier. Class D water purifier can convert undrinkable water into drinkable water and can purify up to 200 liters per day. As the prompt message appeared, a golden light flashed in front of Sui. When the golden light dissipated, a large water purification device about 1 meter high appeared in front of Sui. This water purification device was a type that Sui had never seen before. It was obviously not a technology that humans already had. After all, the item information clearly stated it could purify non-drinking water. This thing has no limited purification range. Maybe it can purify any water. It's amazing. Zhang Xiaozi blinked her beautiful eyes and exclaimed softly. She was surprised that the items appeared out of thin air, while Sui was surprised that the country was so anxious to issue rewards. Before the First War, each country's army has the right to ask for and give once. Either they demand from the people to increase the chances of winning the war, or they give the people random survival supplies as rewards. Obviously, the Chinese army chose to give without hesitation, and the speed was so fast that it was carried out almost shortly after the voting results came out, for fear that if it was delayed for a while, ordinary people would die in the Doomsday disaster. Water purifier. I'm lucky. Sui touched the large device. There was an instruction manual next to the device, which recorded simple operating methods and precautions. Very good. Now I have a greenhouse room and a water purifier, so I can really stay at home forever. There are also freezers that act as air conditioners and provide ice water for cooling. The shelter's arm capabilities are not weak, and Liya, a research maniac, can continuously improve the shelter's building defense coefficient. What am I still lacking now? Maybe I really just lack some entertainment facilities. Sui pondered. Tomorrow's reward. Won't it really give me some entertainment facilities to fill my spiritual needs? Sui opened the city chat channel. Everyone was discussing the random rewards issued by the country with surprise. Look, the magic bread tree. It produces 6 loaves of bread every day. Eating 3 of them will provide you with the nutrients and water you need for the day. I'm so excited to praise the PLA. Is there anything like this? It's a passive air conditioner. It doesn't need to be plugged in. Just turn it on and use it. It can cool or heat yourself. It can also activate the hibernation mode to reduce the body's energy consumption without entering a true hibernation state. Ah? Am I the most unlucky? What I got was a weapon, a laser dagger that doesn't need to be charged. What do I need it for? Give me more food. I looked around and roughly analyzed it. It seems that the rewards we got are all the parts that we need most urgently, right? This mechanism is quite reasonable and not too troublesome. This mysterious existence is quite particular. You are all surprised like fools who have never seen the world. Isn't this as it should be? Who are they? They are the people's soldiers. They will definitely choose to operate without thinking. It will be the same in the future. Don't even think about it. Ah? What do you mean? There will be these rewards in the future? It's the end of the world, and I still have to be protected by the People's Liberation Army every day? I feel like a happy little loser. To be honest, I still hope they come back. The world is still in chaos. I don't dare to go out casually. I see dead bodies outside every day. Alas. The chat channel was filled with surprises and discussions about each other's rewards, and many people posted the contents of their rewards to show off. This scene has a game atmosphere like that of a competition to see who is the luckiest after 10 consecutive draws. Of course, everyone also knows who gave them the confidence to have this joy. With this wave of support, it is estimated that the death toll of survivors across the country will drop sharply tomorrow. Sui murmured. From the overall perspective, the operation is indeed very useful and directly meets everyone's most urgent need for survival resources. This reward sounds a bit like my talent, but I can get the reward every day. The rest of us can only wait for the soldiers to win the battle. Sui analyzed while looking at the conversation message box in front of him. The operation is over, and the Doomsday War has begun. Survivors can use the shelter data version at any time to check the general direction of the current war in their country in real time. They can also spend additional survival points to learn more detailed information about the war situation. The Doomsday War has already begun. I don't know what the situation is like over there. Do the soldiers have any chance of winning against those extremely perverted-looking monsters? Sui was unsure. He trusted the people's soldiers, but humans did not understand the devil. Any accidents were possible in the first war. But compared to the outcome of the war, Sui felt that the two lines of information in front of him seemed to have a deeper meaning. Since we can see the general direction of the war without spending points, why do we need to emphasize that we can spend points to understand the war situation in more detail? This thing shouldn't matter. It won't affect the direction of the war even if we know the war situation in more detail. Sui murmured, and suddenly an idea flashed in his mind. So far, the hints given by the mysterious entity are basically no nonsense. It is impossible for it to deliberately add a mechanism that seems to be useless. Think about it carefully. Is this message really that simple? Could it be a sign that the survivors of Earth can actually influence the situation of the Doomsday War by spending points? Chapter 37. All-Night Fire Coverage. Sir, what are you thinking about? Zhang Xiaozi raised her head and looked at Sui, who was thinking about something blankly. She asked curiously, is there any problem with this machine? Zhang Xiaozi has already figured out the function and usage of the machine. She doesn't understand why Sui hasn't ordered her to install and use the machine. This big guy can provide the most stable drinking water supply to the shelter. I was just thinking about one thing, a possibility that has not yet appeared. Sui took a deep breath and told Zhang Xiaozi the information and his guess. Do you think my guess is possible? Mr. S' guess is correct. This is bound to happen. Zhang Xiaozi made a judgment in an instant without thinking and pointed out the key. As you said, the mysterious existence did not make any unnecessary moves or behaviors, which means that the irrationality of its actions must have its reasons. I was thinking before, if the Doomsday War mechanism really wanted to test humanity, it should not just offer cruel options. Simply sowing discord and exploiting others is not a test. Providing more opportunities and choices is more in line with the mentality of those in high positions and can better demonstrate absolute control. I can't understand what level it is at or how powerful it is. I just feel that, if I were facing a group of ants and wanted to test them, I would definitely give them a way out. If I just want to kill a bunch of ants, why bother? I can just pour a kettle of boiling water. Zhang Xiaozi paused, then smiled and said, so your guess is completely correct. Although we don't know when this new mechanism will appear, we can almost be sure that we will have the possibility of influencing the Doomsday War. Of course, this influence can not only support our army, but also weaken their combat effectiveness. I think this is fairness with more choices, and the true battle between good and evil in human nature. Zhang Xiaozi's approval made Sui feel relieved. It seems that I am not overthinking it. Smart people also think so it is probably true. If that's the case, other smart people will definitely be able to think of this. Once more and more people know about this, then the survival points will be more effective. Whether it's to help the soldiers or to weaken them, everyone will try their best to get more survival points. Sui murmured, Xiaozi, then we have to move quickly. We have to keep up with the pace and find a way to get more points. Obtaining more survival points can not only improve the living conditions in the shelter, but also affect the soldiers in the Doomsday War. Sui values the latter more. He no longer has any urgent survival pressure at this stage. The only thing that can directly threaten Sui's life is the random annihilation that may occur after the failure of the Doomsday War. Although it is impossible for soldiers to make this choice, since this punishment mechanism has emerged, it is not certain that there will be no compulsory elimination punishment. Don't be afraid of 10,000 things. Just be prepared for the worst. What if the military loses a few battles in a row and some forced elimination happens, and I happen to be unlucky enough to encounter it? Then I'll just stop right here. What you said is absolutely right, sir. Zhang Xiaozi nodded and asked, should I let Lin Yu continue to explore for supplies outside? Exploration supplies are secondary, and the survival points reward after the exploration mission is the key. No, wait a little longer. The 10 or 20 points won't make a big difference. Sui waved his hand. Whether it is to build a shelter or to support the Doomsday War, the points required will definitely not be too low. Ordinary means are simply not enough. We have to use extraordinary means. Sui's eyes flashed with strange light, and at this moment, he underwent some subtle changes in his psychology. Zhang Xiaozi was very understanding. She felt the slight change in Sui's heart and couldn't help but lower her head and said a word. Little White Bear Sanctuary. Sui was silent and didn't say anything. After a while, he raised an eyebrow and said, do you want me to learn from the Little White Bear Sanctuary?
No.
Zhang Xiaozi shook her head and smiled. Sir, you told me that the Little White Bear shelter holds the most survival points in the city, and destroying the shelter will directly inherit the other party's unused points. So, sir, why don't you get rid of this evil for the people? Late at night, Sui lay on the bed, staring blankly out the window with his bright eyes open in the darkness. Next to him was Zhang Xiaozi, who was already sleeping soundly. After arranging the water purifier and night watch work, she naturally lay down next to Sui and slept under the quilt. Neither of them refused this matter, and it seemed to have become the tacit content of the night for the couple. Sui could feel the delicate body beside him, still warm and naked. But Sui still had no distractions and had no intention of falling asleep. He was thinking about the advice Zhang Xiaozi gave him. I don't mind taking the initiative to punish the evildoers, but I only have one Lin Yu now. Sui was calculating silently in his mind. No matter how he thought about it, he didn't think that Lin Yu could solve the problem of the polar bear shelter by himself. He is the top guy on the list, so his talent and ability must be good. Sui even suspected that the other party's talent might be much stronger than his own. Otherwise, how could he destroy so many shelters in just a few days? It is impossible for Lin Yu alone to defeat the opponent. However, Zhang Xiaozi's proposal cannot be completely ignored. After all, the two sides have already formed a grudge against each other. Even if the other party can't find Sui now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be able to find him in the future. I have to take advantage of the fact that I am still in the dark and get rid of him as soon as possible. It would be really stupid to wait for him to come to me and seek revenge. But if I want to quickly improve the combat effectiveness of the shelter, the best way is to use my talent. How can I use it effectively so that the talent rewards will always give me the type of rewards I want? Sui pondered. The talent reward is what I need most at the moment, but the current combat power of the shelter is not too bad for a level 1 shelter, so it is no longer an urgent need, right? But can I make some adjustments? Although there is no urgent need for combat power, if we increase the amount of food, water, and other resources to a level higher than the combat power level, will it appear that the shelter's combat power is insufficient? Is the most urgent need for talent rewards to follow the barrel theory? Unconsciously, Sui had been thinking all night. When he came to his senses, it was already daybreak. He was shocked to realize that he had not slept all night and was overwhelmed by sleepiness. Take a break. Studying the talent mechanism is not something that can be mastered in a day or two.
Sui fell asleep in drowsiness.
He felt as if he had just closed his eyes when he heard Zhang Xiaozi's gentle voice, waking him up in his ear. Sir, it's time to get up. It's already past 11 noon. Sui opened his eyes tiredly and rubbed his aching head. Zhang Xiaozi asked gently, Sir, did you not sleep well last night? Well, I've been thinking about it all night. Sui sighed. Xiaozi, tell me, how can we improve the combat effectiveness of the shelter? Build up a self-circulating material supply system, develop a larger population, train the army, and research weapons and equipment. Zhang Xiaozi gave the answer almost without hesitation. Build an army loyal to you, sir, and you will naturally not be afraid of any threats. Building an army? Sui was stunned. He looked at Zhang Xiaozi and suddenly asked, Have you always been planning this? Including persuading me to accept those women? Was it also for this purpose? Gentlemen. Zhang Xiaozi did not refute, but lowered his head and explained softly, Compared to men, I understand women better, and I am more confident in training them. I'm increasingly curious about what you did in the past. You can even train female soldiers? Sui looked Zhang Xiaozi up and down and asked tentatively, Can you tell me about it? If my question is not offensive. Director of the Special Forces Training Base. Zhang Xiaozi did not hide anything and even explained it in detail to Su Yi. This position is probably the identity of a special soldier trainer during the anti-Japanese war in this world. At the same time, he will also be responsible for the trainer's secret missions and exist as their superior. Secret mission. Shit. Underground organization? Lurkers. Spies. Su Yi's eyes widened. You can train spies. Well, sort of. Zhang Xiaozi smiled and nodded. No wonder this woman is an A-level talent. No wonder she tried hard to persuade herself to accept that group of women. It turns out she has this ability. Good at management, extremely intelligent, and able to train spies. This woman is simply an all-rounder. Sui was very surprised, but he soon realized that this could not solve his current predicament. Xiaozi, you are indeed very powerful, but, well, what I need is to quickly improve the combat effectiveness of the shelter. Your approach is only suitable for long-term development. If we encounter danger in the short term, we can only rely on Linyu. Sui knew very well that no matter how powerful Zhang Xiaozi was, it was impossible for him to quickly transform those women into warriors. This takes a process. Zhang Xiaozi also understood. She lowered her head and whispered, Sir, before that, I will do my best to ensure the safety of the shelter and will not let us fall into despair. You never know what's going on. Let's eat first. Sui sat down at the dining table and was about to pick up his chopsticks when he suddenly remembered the Doomsday War. One night has passed, and I don't know how the soldiers' first battle went. How should I check the battle situation? Oh, right, here it is. Sui found the battle situation module through the shelter interface. After selecting it, several information prompts appeared in front of Sui. At midnight tonight, the first Doomsday War begins and our country's troops enter the battlefield. At 3:30 a.m., the country's army obtained information about the battlefield city and sent out scouts to collect intelligence on the enemy. At 1:30 a.m., the first large-scale encounter occurred. The country's army completed the strategic deployment at the cost of sacrificing 569 drones and lured the enemy into an ambush. At 1:40 a.m., the first round of artillery bombardment began. The H-6 carried out its mission and perfectly achieved the war objectives, destroying urban buildings and burying 525 demons. At 2:10 a.m., 18 J-20s were dispatched together to suppress the enemy's low-altitude flying capability and disrupt the enemy's intention to break out of the city ruins. At 2:30 a.m., the DF-15 began cluster bombing, which lasted for 2 hours. At 4:30 a.m., a drone entered the ruins and confirmed that a total of 506 enemy bodies were killed, and it was suspected that some remnants had escaped. At 5:26 a.m., the command confirmed the battle situation of another heavily armored combined brigade, which successfully delayed more than 200 demons, who were suspected to be demon scouts. At the same time, a large number of demon activity targets were discovered, suspected to be ambushing and supporting activities in the wild. At 5:40 a.m., the command center activated the Way-2 2D long-range rocket launcher to carry out a full coverage saturation strike on the area where large-scale demon activities were taking place. At 6:20 in the morning, the artillery bombardment stopped and the results of the battle could not be confirmed. The second round of drone decoy operations began, but failed. At 7:50 in the morning, the battlefield entered a period of silence. Sui read through them one by one. His mouth opened unconsciously. You guys have been firing cannons all night long?